Good evening, everyone. I'm CA Akshay Gullane, Chairman of Nagpur Branch, ICAI, moderator of this webinar. We are delighted to welcome you all in the webinar being organized by the Continuing Professional Education Committee of ICAI. It is my pleasure to be a moderator for the webinar on preventive controls under GST to avoid notices and the practical aspects in valuation. In a short while, we will be starting the webinar soon. The profession of chartered accountancy is growing leaps and bounds, and its phenomenal growth has brought the profession at the forefront. Today, our profession has acquired an indispensable position in the business and economy. ICAI continuously aims at developing the knowledge edge so that the members stand out to the expectations of the society. To achieve this objective, the CPE Committee of ICAI has been continuously striving for profession, integrity, and knowledge, which make the word chartered accountant synonymous with the excellence in service. In this direction, CPE Committee has always been proactive to the emerging needs of its members, enabling them to acquire contemporary knowledge and skills to face the challenges effectively by organizing CPE programs and providing adequate opportunities. Today, in this webinar, we will have two sessions. One, avoiding the notices with preventive controls under GST. And the second session will be on the practical aspects in valuation. To begin with, we would like to thank the chairman of the CPE committee, CA Purushottam Khandelwal sir, and the Vice Chairman of CPE Committee, CA Gyanchand Mishra sir, for organizing this webinar. Our Vice Chairman of CPE Committee, CA Gyanchand Mishra sir, is a dynamic personality handling the insolvency and bankruptcy of ICAI, being a chairman, and presently he is serving at the ICAI as a Central Council member. He has more than 24 years of professional standing to his credit as an esteemed chartered accountant. Under his vision, this year, CPE Committee takes new initiatives for the members. We welcome Gyanchand Mishra sir on the forum, and I request him to kindly address the members as a welcome address. Over to you, Gyanchand sir.
So much thank you, Akshay Gullane ji, Honorable Chairman, Nagpur Branch, two very distinguished speakers. Again, Akshay ji, Jen, who shall be deliberating on very important thought process, that is with respect to the how to avoid the notices of the GST to planning, and the second speaker, C.A. Krishna Mittalji, who is a very renowned valuer and who shall be deliberating about the valuation and its aspect. And all respected participants, Ajit and all dignitaries who have joined us virtually, good evening to one and all. Friends, we all know that CPE is one of the initiatives of the institute, which not only tries to educate to the members on different pertinent topics and different pertinent skill set, but also it disseminates the knowledge, it monitors the entire CPE working, it assists the various committees to enhance the quality of the program, to monitor their programs, and effectively to credit the CPRs to the members who have joined the program. The purpose of the CPE committee is not only to give the credit, but ultimate purpose is to strengthen the knowledge and the skill of the member so that they can keep themselves updated to tune themselves with the future challenges. This program today is having two topics, as we have discussed. I, Purushottam Khandelwal ji, respected chairman of the committee. So friends, today, as we understand, there are two sessions, one on GST, the other one on valuation. Both are very important topics. GST is one of the core area of practice for the chartered accountants at large, whether it is big city or a small city, and valuation. Now it is going to have the tremendous revenue generating area for the practicing professionals in coming time, because valuation is not only with respect to the insolvency or bankruptcy. Valuation relates to valuation of the shares for any purpose, or valuation of the business, or valuation of the assets. So the chartered accountants are especially, doing the valuation with respect to the specific class of the assets that shall be deliberated by Krishnaji. I'm sure that this webinar is going to be beneficial for the members who are doing the practice in both the segments, and for the members who want to go for the practice in coming time. Friends, keep yourself updated, because the time is ahead is changing very fast, very rapidly. Artificial intelligence is one area which is taking over the entire gamut of the profession in coming time. Compliance part will be reducing in coming time. So we have to have ourselves updated in such a way so that the newer opportunities could be grabbed, and we could face the future challenges in coming time. So much thank you, Ajit ji, for your untiring effort for organizing such webinar in the interest of the members. And I'm sure that this show will go on to the best of the interest of the members, with best of the speakers and moderators. Thank you. I can see that Purushottam Bhai has just joined. He has boarded in some flight, I can see. And I am on the airport. I am also going to board. Thank you, Ajit ji, respected both speakers, moderator, and chairman of the committee, Purushottam Bhai.
Thank you. Thank you so much,
Gyan Bhai.
Gyanchand Mishra sir. We are fortunate to have with us the chairman of CPE committee ICAI, CA Purushottam Khandelwal sir. He is, along with being a chairman of CPE committee, he is also convener of RBI Directorate of ICAI. He is having 25 years post-qualification experience in the field of audit, direct and indirect tax, and intellectual property rights. This year, Purushottam sir is devoted to fortifying the CPE framework and guaranteeing the quality across its entire operational spectrum. And this year, major focus would be on upgrading of the CPE portal for enhancement of the branding and professional competency of the members. We welcome Purushottam sir on the forum of ICAI, and I request you to kindly address the gathering.
Good afternoon, respected Vice Chairman of this CPE committee and my dear friend, council colleague, Gyan Mishra ji, who's always available member, and students. Works for the member is the instrument in organizing first ever international conference of ICAI outside India. He organized an insolvency conference in the Singapore with very good brandings. This year he is also organizing a resolve at Delhi on 13, I think 12 and 13 January. Is correct? 12 and 13 July.
12 and 13 July, sir. 12 and
12 and 13 July. My humble request to all those who wants to make their career in insolvency profession, don't miss the opportunity. Is a one kind of unique event which is organizing by the Gyan Mishra ji, respected faculty Akshay ji and Krishna Kumar ji, moderator of this session Akshay Gulani ji, my dear friend and chairman of very most Nagpur branch. Ajit Naji Tiwari ji is the secretary of the CPE, and he is organizing every Wednesday the CPE, CPE programs, but available virtually. So thank you, Tiwari ji, for doing a wonderful job at CPE Secretariat, and respected members. It may give us pleasure to amongst you on this CPE seminar. CPE committee is a most vibrant committee, mother of all the committee. Intention of this committee to update my members regularly, because what we are selling is services. So if you want to sell the services, you must have update every time. Nani Palkiwala rightly said, if you want to give advice to your client, but before giving advice, you have to refer to the books of accounts. So that was the scenario of the professions. And I'm rightly said that President is always saying the audit is a serious business. After looking at the order passed by NAFRA or a SEBI, and whenever SEBI refers matter to the NAFRA, it's dangerous for all the chartered accountants who are not keeping a proper record. So this year we have done a lot of changes in the peer review board, and this year the 30th June is the last date for those firm who was the 5 or more partners or having turnover of 1,000 crore or borrowing of 500 crores. So they are come under the this practicing firm is come under the peer review board. The peer review exercise has been recognized by two of these regulator. First, SEBI recognized this peer review board exercise that every board who wants to appoint the auditor of listed company, they must have a CP certificate. They have a peer review certificate. And the second phase, this is recognized by the C&AG. C&AG giving a 25 marks to the peer review firms. So that will be more advantage to the credit of firms. On 31st December is the last date for those practicing unit having 4 or more partners and they are having a borrowing of 50 crores and more. So you must have to go to the peer review board, and 1st April 2025 is the date for those who are auditor of bank branch of auditors. So that is compulsory for all the members who are doing the exercise of bank branch audit. So the peer review exercise is just not the fault finding, but nurturing the practicing unit. The reviewer is coming and guiding you to become a peer reviewer. There are 7 years of the practicing field experience, and member those who want in the industry and coming to the practice, they must have a 3-year experience. So that is the basic requirement of CP, and you have to attend 1-day training programs. My humble request to Akshay Gulani ji, if they are not organizing a CP training program in Nagpur, so you must give an opportunity member to become a reviewer today at Ahmedabad, and before Ahmedabad there was a program in the Surat, there in the Bhavnagar and Gandhinagar. So Gujarat is organizing a regular CP, peer review board training program. So I request you also to organize this program. I will not take much of time with the learned faculties here to teach you. Thank you for being coming here. Akshay bhai.
Thank you so much, Purushottam sir. Definitely, we will soon organize a session.
अक्षय जी जरूर ऑर्गेनाइज करिए. लोगों को जरूरत है, पीर रिव्यू बोर्ड को भी जरूरत है, और कम से कम रिव्यूअर न भी बन पाए तो अपनी ऑफिस के डॉक्यूमेंट तो ठीक होंगे. जब भी इन्वेस्टिगेशन ऑफिस इन्वेस्टिगेट करते हैं तो अपने डॉक्यूमेंट व्यवस्थित होना चाहिए, बाकी का तो ठीक है. So as a friends, I am telling you that organize this event.
Thank you so much, Purushottam sir. Friends, we are fortunate to have with us our first speaker, CA Akshay Kumar Jain. Since 1st July 2017, when the GST Act has came into picture, lot of changes and amendments were done in the Act. At the same time, department has sent lot of notices also to our assessees for the mismatches, whether it is 2A, 2B mismatch, whether it is ITC disallowance cases. So I'm sure Akshay sir is going to deliberate on how to create a scenario to avoid the notices received from the department. Akshay sir has a vast experience of over 7 years in indirect taxes and internal audits, GST, custom, VAT, and tax planning. He is actively involved with numerous industry and professional associations nationwide. Sir is a regular faculty for his specialization at CAG, CGST, ICAI, ICSI, and has also more than 200 lectures across the 12 states in India and across approximately 15 cities. Welcome Akshay sir on the forum of CPE committee ICAI, and I request him to kindly address the gathering. Over to you, Akshay sir.
Yes, thank you, Akshay bhai, for the opportunity, and thank you very much, everyone. Gyan ji, Purushottam ji, Krishna ji, Ajit ji, Mohit bhai, Akshay bhai.
Akshay sir, your voice is very low.
Wait, 1 second. So now is it clear?
Yeah.
Now okay, Akshay?
Yeah, now okay.
So GST have confusion, just like participants don't know who is the speaker, right? Akshay Gulani or Akshay Jain, right? So GST is confusion. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Sir, it's still low. Your voice is still very low, sir.
1 second. So am I audible now? Now am I audible?
Yes, sir. Please continue, sir.
Perfect. Sir. So topic is very interesting. That is preventive control under GST, and why it is required because everyone knows amnesty scheme will not come every time, right? Just like 2 or 3 days before, that is 16/4, and there are a lot of provisions which will be effective from future days, right? So we need to preventive control for ourselves and for our clients, right? So its topic has a specific purpose, and in this purpose there are a lot of process issues. So we will discuss about what is the objective of today's webinar and what is the process issue. Then after, what is the solution of sales strategy. So within the 30 minutes, 45 minutes, you will learn about a lot of things. Then why lot of confusion will create and created. Right? So now I start. My presentation is clear. Actually, my presentation is clear.
Yeah, presentation is visible, sir. Can we make it full screen?
One.
Mohit, can you play the presentation from your end? Yeah, now it is clear. Yeah, please.
So I'm on second slide. That is what is the purpose of the session. And so we will discuss this session in 3 parts. That is what is the purpose of the session. Second part is what is the process issue in that purpose. And third part is what is the solution. Right? So in overall, GST consultation, we have almost, only 3 purposes. That is to ensure compliance of GST clients. Right? That is the first purpose. Second purpose is to avoid penalties and interest and unwanted taxes. Right? And third issue is for tax planning. So in overall GST planning, only we have 3 purpose. The first is to ensure compliance. Second is to avoid penalties, interest, and unwanted taxes. Third is for tax planning. Apart from this, we have no the other objective for GST compliance goal. So to ensure compliance and to avoid penalty, interest, and to for tax planning. Right? So in this process, what is the process issues? Sometimes we need to think GST like so we need to consult our client. We need to have knowledge of GST Act, GST rules, GST forms, GST notification, GST circular, GST instruction, GST guidelines. Right? So to give consultation to our client, we need to knowledge of every aspect of GST Act, every aspect of GST rules, every aspect of GST forms, every aspect of GST notification, every aspect of GST circular, instruction, guidelines, order, etc. Not only this, we need to know also about Supreme Court decisions, High Court decisions, tribunal decisions, appeals, में क्या चल रहा है, right? Advance ruling, etc. Right? Apart from this, sometimes every state issues guidelines to a specific procedure. Like e-way bill in Rajasthan, there is limit that is 2 lakh rupees for e-way bill within the city transfer, right? Sometimes in Maharashtra there is separate rules, sometimes uh, Gujarat in separate rules. So not only Act rules notification, not only Supreme Court, High Court decision, not only we need to know about state specific circulars and state specific guidelines. Apart from this, sometimes we need to know about commissioner decision of SGST or CGST, both within the state or outside the state, right? Sometimes some specific provisions of GST is period specific, as we are aware about Section 9(5). In initial phase of time, Section 9(5) is applicable, and now Section 9(4) is not applicable right now, right? Apart from this, some provision is time specific, right? Some like rent. Right? Sometimes we need to think about GST like manufacturing, trading, or service provider. Right? Some provisions of GST changes perspective of manufacturing industry, sometimes trading industry, sometimes service provider, right? So apart from this, sometimes we need to think about GST like category wise. Like exporter है तो कुछ अलग GST लगेगा, SEZ है तो कुछ अलग लगेगा, job worker है तो कुछ अलग लगेगा. Sometimes we need to think GST turnover based. If turnover is greater than 5 CR, now we are aware that e-invoice is applicable, right? So sometimes we need to think GST with respective of client is company or firm or individual. You know, we are very well aware about the RCM के जो provisions है वो बदल जाते हैं, client company होता है, firm होता है, individual होता है. Apart from this, sometimes client routine activity GST बदल जाता है, like sometimes client का rented premise है, वो commercial है कि residential है, ये वो residential है तो उसके ऊपर RCM applicable होगा. So sometimes we need to think about GST like this, right? समटाइम ऑफ बैलेंस शीट आइटम, फॉर एग्जांपल आपका क्लाइंट बिल्डर है, आपने रिएम्बर्समेंट फ्लैट, जितने भी बिल्डर्स के यहाँ पे जो फ्लैट है वहां पे इलेक्ट्रिसिटी का रिएम्बर्समेंट किया. अब फॉर एग्जांपल आपका 10 लाख रुपए का इलेक्ट्रिसिटी का एक्सपेंसेस था, आपने रिएम्बर्समेंट होकर 10 लाख रुपए चले क्या नेट ऑफ करके उस आइटम्स को बैलेंस शीट में क्लोज आउट कर दिया. समटाइम वी नीड टू थिंक जीएसटी दैट एस्पेक्ट आल्सो के कोई ऑफ बैलेंस शीट आइटम जिसके ऊपर जीएसटी तो नहीं लग रहा. Now, apart from this, GST runs from GST portals also, e-way bill also, e-invoice site also, right? So there are lot of points from उन पर्टिकुलर पॉइंट्स से हमको कहीं ना कहीं जीएसटी के लिए सोचना पड़ता है. नॉट ओनली जीएसटी एक्ट रूल्स नोटिफिकेशन सर्कुलर, नॉट ओनली सुप्रीम कोर्ट हाई कोर्ट डिसीजन, नॉट ओनली एसजीएसटी सीजीएसटी स्पेसिफिक, sometimes period specific, sometimes manufacturing trading service provider specific, sometimes category wise GST we need to think, sometimes turnover rates, sometimes company from individual, sometimes client routine activity, sometimes portal specific, right? Sometimes we need to learn about industry specific laws also. For example, in the case of real estate, if we don't know about RERA, it's very difficult to consult a real estate client, right? So for that industry, we need to aware about RERA, Benami also to consult GST, right? Sometimes we also know about Income Tax Act, Companies Act, MSME Act, right? So as we are very well aware about that, GST में limit है 180 दिन की, है ना, GST रिवर्स करने की. But MSME में we all are aware that 45 days की limitation है. So only GST Act से ही काम नहीं चलेगा, यहाँ पे हमको MSME का Income Tax Act का भी नॉलेज है. कभी कभी क्या होता है कि वी नो दैट जीएसटी एक्ट ये बोल रहा है, पर मार्केट की ट्रेंड, मार्केट की प्रैक्टिस क्या चल रही है, हमको वो भी ध्यान रखना पड़ता है. तो इतने सारे पॉइंट्स है जिस तरह से हमको व्हाट इज द प्रॉब्लम, हम लोग जीएसटी क्लाइंट्स में कंसल्ट करने आते हैं तो वो एक गुड फील क्यों नहीं आता, इसलिए नहीं आता क्योंकि हम लोग को इन तरह से जीएसटी को कहीं ना कहीं सोचना पड़ता है. तो अल्टीमेटली ऑब्जेक्ट इज टू सेव पेनल्टीज इंटरेस्ट, टू सेव अनवांटेड टैक्सेस. बट ये सारा प्रोसेस में हमको इशू आता है कि वो हमको कई बार अगर इस तरह से नहीं होता क्लाइंट, कई बार इस तरह से हमको जीएसटी लॉ के बारे में पता नहीं होता, राइट? Sometimes, you know, there are a lot of points that is GST 2B, GST 1, GST 3B mismatches है ना. तो डिपार्टमेंट कई बार क्या जो भी मिसमैचेस की वजह से आप तक पहुंचता है. तो मैं राजस्थान के डेटा की बात करूँ, राजस्थान में 100 क्लाइंट्स में से भी जीएसटी डिपार्टमेंट पहुंचा है वो 1% क्लाइंट्स तक पहुंचा है. और मेजरली वाई, क्योंकि बिकॉज उनके बाद जो भी मिसमैसेज वहां पर है उनसे जो है वहां तक पहुंचा है. उसके बाद समटाइम्स इनकम टैक्स रिटर्न में, बैंक स्टेटमेंट में, एएस में बहुत तरह के जो है इस तरह की चीजें आती है जो ऑटोमेटिकली रेफ्लेक्ट होती है और हम लोग जीएसटी को कहीं ना कहीं कवर नहीं करते. तो डिपार्टमेंट 100 में से एक क्लाइंट तक पहुंचा है, तो पहुंचने का स्क्रीन जो आपके सामने दिख रहा है, कहीं ना कहीं डेटा मिसमैच की वजह से आईटीआर, बैंक स्टेटमेंट में क्या डेटा शो हो रहा है, समटाइम किसी एक क्लाइंट तक पहुंच गए, वो फेक निकल गया, तो उससे रिलेटेड सारे जो पीछे के चेन है वहां तक डिपार्टमेंट पहुंचने की कोशिश करते हैं. कभी कभी क्या होता है कि डिपार्टमेंट ने एक पर्टिकुलर इंडस्ट्री का एक कोई पॉइंट पकड़ लिया, उस पर्टिकुलर पॉइंट से जिससे भी इंडस्ट्री के बिग प्लेयर्स है वहां तक डिपार्टमेंट पहुंचता है, राइट? कभी कभी डिपार्टमेंट हमारे पास क्यों पहुंचता है, क्योंकि आप सीबी टाइम से फाइल नहीं कर रहे, या 1 टाइम से फाइल नहीं कर रहे, तो डिपार्टमेंट आप तक अभी तक पहुंचा है विद इन 7 ईयर्स बिकॉज ऑफ मिस मैचेज. तो जनरली वो पहले वाली चीजें, तो ये मिस मैसेज की वजह से मैक्सिमम क्लाइंट्स के पास डिपार्टमेंट पहुंचा है. तो कहीं ना कहीं हम लोग ये मिस मैसेज को कंट्रोल कर लिया. तो हमारे वो प्रिवेंटिव कंट्रोल की जो बात है क्लाइंट तक पहुंचने की, आप बहुत हद तक ये मिस मैसेज को कम करते हो तो चांसेस क्या मिलते हैं. अपार्ट फ्रॉम दिस, कभी कभी डिपार्टमेंट बिकॉज ऑफ इंडस्ट्री स्पेसिफिक सेक्शन वाइज चीजें पकड़ता है. 16/4 का भी रिसेंटली एग्जाम्पल है. तो 16/4 में जितने भी केसेस है, अभी 7 साल के एक नया अमेंडमेंट आया, तो कभी कभी वो स्पेसिफिक सेक्शन सबसेक्शन को पकड़ के डिपार्टमेंट हम तक पहुंचे. समटाइम्स बिकॉज ऑफ GST 9 एंड 9C क्या मिस मैसेज हमने उसमें शो किए हैं, किस तरह से आपके फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट में टर्नओवर क्या आ रहा है, नाइन में क्या आ रहा है, नाइन सी में आ रहा है। समटाइम्स ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ रेगुलर साइकिल, जो भी उनके सॉफ्टवेयर है बैकएंड पे हो, तो इस तरह से दिखाते हैं। अब ना व्हाट इज द सॉल्यूशन ऑफ दैट पार्ट? ऑब्जेक्टिव इज वेरी क्लियर दैट हमको कहीं ना कहीं अनवांटेड टैक्स क्लाइंट का ना लगे, और जो भी टैक्स पेनल्टी, जो पेनल्टीज इंटरेस्ट क्लाइंट का ना लगे। तो इस सारी प्रॉब्लम्स में, इस सारी ऑब्जेक्टिव में इतनी सारी प्रॉब्लम्स है कि हमको ये भी ध्यान रखना है, वो भी ध्यान रखना है। हमने कम से कम 20-25 चीजों के बारे में बात करी, राइट। ना सॉल्यूशन पार्ट है, तो कैसे हम लोग इन सब चीजों को कंसिडर करते हुए, यू नो देयर आर थ्री पार्ट्स अगेन, कि आज तक इतना सारे नोटिफिकेशन सर्कुलर इशू है, उनको कैसे हमको नॉलेज में रखना है। सेकंड पार्ट इज फ्यूचर में हमको कैसे नॉलेज में रखना है। थर्ड पार्ट इज कि नॉलेज डिफरेंट पार्ट, उसको प्रैक्टिकली कैसे इम्प्लीमेंट करना है ना। हमको पता है कि रेजिडेंशियल प्रॉपर्टी केस में आरसीएम लगता है, लेकिन हमको पता ही नहीं चलता क्लाइंट ने कब रेजिडेंशियल प्रॉपर्टी रेंट पर ले ली और कब उसको हमारे ऑफिस से ही वहाँ पे टीडीएस डिडक्ट हो रहा है, पर हमको यही नहीं पता उसके ऊपर आरसीएम भी पे करना है ना। तो नॉलेज की वन पार्ट, सेकंड पार्ट इज ऑनगोइंग कैसे नॉलेज रखना है, थर्ड पार्ट इज इम्प्लीमेंटेशन ना। तो नॉलेज पार्ट इज सी सीबीएसई की वेबसाइट और आईडीटीसी की वेबसाइट की अमेजिंग वेबसाइट, आईडीटीसी की स्पेसिफिकली अपने इंस्टीट्यूट की है। पूरा का पूरा मॉड्यूल सबसे बेस्ट मॉड्यूल है कि आपको जितने नोटिफिकेशन सर्कुलर एक्ट जो है, सारा का सारा एक कंपाइल्ड डॉक्यूमेंट आईडीटीसी की वेबसाइट पे मिलेगा हमको। हमको कहीं भी कोई भी बुक को रेफर करने की होती है, सारा का सारा डेटा हमको वहाँ मिलेगा। फायदा क्या है कि सेक्शन 2, सेक्शन 3, सेक्शन 4 जो भी उसी से रिलेटेड रूल्स वहाँ लिखे हुए हैं, उसी से रिलेटेड जो भी सुप्रीम कोर्ट में क्या चल रहा है, हाई कोर्ट में क्या चल रहा है, वो वहाँ कंपाइल है। तो पीछे की कई सारी प्रॉब्लम खत्म हो जाती है, एक पर्टिकुलर मॉड्यूल हमारे पास निकल जाता है। अपार्ट फ्रॉम दिस, आगे के लिए हमको कैसे कंटिन्यू अपडेट करना है, देखिए मंथली न्यूज लेटर, एक सीबीएसई का जीएसटी काउंसिल का हर महीने एक न्यूज लेटर आता है, आईडीटीसी का एक न्यूज लेटर आता है। अब वो कंटिन्यू रीड करते रहो, आप आगे की क्या अपडेट चल रही है हमको उसको पता रहेगी। अब ना सवाल आता है कि हमको कैसे अपडेट करना है। पीछे का हमने बात करी, आगे की हमने बात करी, हम अब बात करते हैं हमको नॉलेज भी एक्ट की, रूल्स की, सब चीज़ों की, तो इम्प्लीमेंट कैसे करना है। तो इम्प्लीमेंटेशन के लिए बड़ी सिंपल सी कहानी, पूरे एक्ट को, रूल्स हम सब चीजों को पढ़ेंगे तो देयर आर लॉट ऑफ प्रोविजन आप अपने माइंड में रख सकते हो, बट इम्प्लीमेंटेशन के टाइम पे कहीं ना कहीं एक डॉक्यूमेंट हमको रखना पड़ेगा, राइट। दिस इज चेकलिस्ट। चेकलिस्ट जो है, ये चेकलिस्ट में अभी आपके मैं शेयर कर रहा हूँ, दिस इज चेकलिस्ट शेयर बाई आईडीटीसी, राइट। तो आईडीटीसी में पूरी चेकलिस्ट बनाई है, अच्छी खासी 17-18 पॉइंट्स में 25 पेजेस की है। बट प्रैक्टिकली जब वो चेकलिस्ट को मैं इम्प्लीमेंट करने गया क्लाइंट पे, फर्स्ट टाइम मुझे, मैंने अपने आउट ऑफ 100 क्लाइंट्स, मैंने अपने टॉप 10 क्लाइंट्स में वो चीज़ इम्प्लीमेंट करने की कोशिश करी। फर्स्ट टाइम 3, 4, 5 दिन मुझे उस चेकलिस्ट को इम्प्लीमेंट करने में लगा। बट नाउ रेगुलर साइकिल में उस चेकलिस्ट को चेक करना पड़ता है मुझे, रीजन बीइंग कि आज किसी क्लाइंट की वो चेकलिस्ट मैंने चेक करवाई, देर मे बी पॉसिबिलिटी कि 6 महीने में लो बदला है, तो देर मे बी पॉसिबिलिटी कि 6 महीने पहले जो ट्रांजेक्शन नहीं था वो क्लाइंट का अब हो सकता है। तो आप उस चेकलिस्ट को एटलीस्ट अपने टॉप 10 क्लाइंट्स में इम्प्लीमेंट करके देख सकते हैं। और इम्प्लीमेंट के बाद में रेगुलर साइकिल में आपको चेकलिस्ट को वापस जाके चेक करना पड़ेगा, रीजन बीइंग कि हो सकता है कि आज ट्रांजेक्शन क्लाइंट का नहीं, कल हो सकता है। जैसे मैंने आपको बताया कि रेंट वाला एग्जांपल हो गया ना, तो आज आपने चेकलिस्ट बना रखी है, आपने क्लाइंट की पूरी इंप्लीमेंट कराई, पूरा चेक कर लिया, परफेक्ट है। 4 महीने बाद क्लाइंट ने एक रेंट को प्रोमिस दे दिया रेजिडेंशियल, उस पर आरसीएम लगना चाहिए, तो आपको आइडिया ही नहीं है। अब 6 महीने बाद आप वापस उस चेकलिस्ट को इंप्लीमेंट कराओगे, तो वहां वो चीज पकड़ में आएगी, अच्छा इसके पर्टिकुलर केस में जो है आरसीएम लगना था पर नहीं लगा, राइट। So, for past knowledge, IDTC website is perfect. You can download module and read. For future monthly newsletter, you can download and read of CBIC and IDTC. Right, on implementation, man, we'll discuss about checklist. Right, checklist common checklist है IDTC ने बनाई है। उस checklist को आप यूज करते हुए आप अपने स्पेसिफिक क्लाइंट के लिए मॉडिफाई कर सकते हैं, बट इट इज द ओनली सॉल्यूशन कि आपकी नॉलेज को क्लाइंट के इम्प्लीमेंटेशन स्टेज तक पहुंचाना, राइट। एंड यू नो व्हाई दिस सेशन रिक्वायर्ड इज प्रिवेंटिव कंट्रोल, कि जितना 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 प्रिवेंटिव कंट्रोल करके रखेंगे हम, जितनी चीजें इसमें से कम रहेगी, जितना ज्यादा पहले से आप चीजों को तैयार करके रखेंगे, आपके फ्यूचर स्टेज आपके नोटिस के चांसेस कम हो जाते हैं। मैंने आपको डेटा शेयर किया था राजस्थान में, जैसे फॉर एग्जाम्पल 100 में से एक क्लाइंट से, तो वो मैक्सिमम क्लाइंट्स वही जिनके मिसमैनेज पे है। तो आपकी आधी प्रॉब्लम तो क्लाइंट्स की वहीं खत्म हो जाती है, हम लोग कहीं ना कहीं उसको पहले से ही चीजों को कंट्रोल करके रखेंगे। तो ई इनवॉइस फ्रॉम, जैसे कई तरह के पॉइंट्स है। ई इनवॉइस फ्रॉम सप्लायर से, सप्लायर से भी इनवॉइस नहीं मिला तो आपको पता होगा कि रिसिपेंट के ऊपर लायबिलिटी है कि ई इनवॉइस आना था और नहीं आया, तो उसके ऊपर कहीं ना कहीं इनपुट टैक्स क्रेडिट की प्रॉब्लम है। अब अगर आप अपने क्लाइंट्स पे देखिए, हम कितने क्लाइंट्स का चेक करते हैं कि उनके सप्लायर से इनवॉइस आना था, क्या आया कि नहीं आया, राइट। पीपी टैक्स पेड और नॉट, राइट। और अपार्ट फ्रॉम दिस जितने भी फिजिकल इनवॉइस वहाँ रखे हुए हैं, 2B में शो होने से हमने कोई इनपुट नहीं मिलता। रूल 36 से बोलता है कि 6 इन्फॉर्मेशन कम से कम तो होनी चाहिए, टैक्स अमाउंट, डिस्क्रिप्शन ऑफ गुड्स। तो लॉट ऑफ पॉइंट्स जो हमको कहीं ना कहीं क्लाइंट से चेक करने पड़ते हैं, विदाउट चेकलिस्ट, विदाउट डॉक्यूमेंट इज नॉट पॉसिबिलिटी, राइट। अपार्ट फ्रॉम द डिलीवरी चार्ज, फॉर एग्जांपल आपकी बैलेंस शीट में भी असेट्स आ रही है 10 करोड़ रुपए की, 5 करोड़ रुपए की, तो जो हेड ऑफिस है वहाँ पे वो असेट्स रखी हुई है, नहीं रखी हुई, असेट्स रखी हुई है या कम रखी हुई है, तो जो भी असेट्स ब्रांच ऑफिस में गई है वो डिलीवरी चालान के साथ में गई है कि नहीं गई है, राइट। सो अभी रेगुलरली जीएसटी डिपार्टमेंट पर्टिकुलर चीजें चेक कर रहा है, आरसीएम इम्पोर्ट पर, रेंटिंग पर, बहुत तरह की चीजें हैं, कहीं ना कहीं हमको चेकलिस्ट बनानी पड़ेगी। ना आई एम शेयरिंग द चेकलिस्ट के कैसे वो चेकलिस्ट बनेगी और किस तरह से मैं क्लाइंट पे इम्प्लीमेंट करता हूँ। तो सर चेकलिस्ट विजिबल और नॉट?
Yeah, visible, sir.
So this is the checklist, almost 27 pages, right, or almost 17-18 points. This is the basic checklist और ये पर्टिकुलर चेकलिस्ट जो है आप अपने क्लाइंट्स के लिए जैसा जिस कैटेगरी का क्लाइंट है, फॉर एग्जांपल मैन्युफैक्चरर है, ट्रेडर है, या सर्विस प्रोवाइडर है, या जॉब वर्कर है, या किसी भी तरह का वो क्लाइंट हो, आप उस पर्टिकुलर क्लाइंट के लिए अपने तरीके से उसको मॉडिफाई कर सकते हो। बट दिस इज बेसिक चेकलिस्ट, और पहली बार बड़े क्लाइंट के केस में 3-4-5 दिन का टाइम लगा, बट आई एम वेरी कॉन्फिडेंट कि उस पर्टिकुलर क्लाइंट के कोई भी जीएसटी की नॉन कंप्लायंस नहीं है। इस चेकलिस्ट में कई बार क्लाइंट के स्पेसिफिक जो मॉडिफिकेशन करना है आपको, तो वो चेकलिस्ट बनाने के बाद, इंप्लीमेंट करने के बाद, एटलीस्ट हर 6 महीने में बड़े क्लाइंट के केस में, और उससे थोड़े मीडियम साइज क्लाइंट के, आपको 1 साल में इस चेकलिस्ट को इंप्लीमेंट करके देखना चाहिए कि कुछ ट्रांजेक्शन बदल तो नहीं गए। इसके अलावा लास्ट 7 ईयर्स में मेरे को कोई सोल्यूशन नहीं मिला कि कैसे मैं क्लाइंट्स के मेरी नॉलेज को इम्प्लीमेंटेशन स्टेज तक ला सकता हूँ। So, starting from GST registration certificate, right? So, क्या क्या for first point that is GST registration certificate checked by जो भी हमारे ऑफिस स्टाफ है, yes और not, right? चेक किया या नहीं किया, yes किया तो yes, नहीं किया तो no, नॉट एप्लीकेबल तो नॉट एप्लीकेबल, और कोई भी दिमाग से तो यहाँ पर वर्ड की फाइल में लिख लेना। तो मूविंग फॉरवर्ड, सेकंड पॉइंट इज जीएसटी रजिस्ट्रेशन सर्टिफिकेट। आपको पता होगा रिसेंटली एक पूरा हवा बना था कि जीएसटी डिपार्टमेंट मार्केट में आ रहा है, सर्टिफिकेट लगा हुआ है कि नहीं लगा हुआ देख रहा है। तो दैट इज ओनली सिंगल पार्ट। ऐसे कई जीएसटी लॉ में कंप्लायंसेस ऑलरेडी लिखे हुए हैं 1 जुलाई 17 से, बट जैसे जैसे व्हाट्सएप पे मैसेज फॉरवर्ड होता है, हम लोग उसी मैसेज के चीजों को मान के, और हम लोग वापस से पैनिक होते हैं ना। तो ये चीज इनिशियल लेवल से थी कि यदि किसी भी क्लाइंट के यहाँ पे जीएसटी का रिसेंट सर्टिफिकेट लगा हुआ नहीं है, तो आपको पता होगा जनरल से सेक्शन 125 लग जाता है, और 50,000 की पेनल्टी लगा सकते हैं। तो नॉट ओनली जीएसटी सर्टिफिकेट आपके वहाँ पर होना चाहिए रिसेप्शन पे, तो आपका जीएसटी रजिस्ट्रेशन नंबर और नाम आउटसाइड द प्रेमाइसेस भी होना चाहिए। अगेन ये पूरे 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 लॉ में ये जो है वो केवल दो दो कंप्लायंस है जीएसटी को लेके। आपको व्हाट्सअप आया, आपने वापस चेक करना स्टार्ट कर दिया, पर ऐसे कम से कम 100-150 कंप्लायंस है जो ऑलरेडी जीएसटी एक्ट में लिखे हुए हैं, बट वो कंप्लायंस जो है आज की डेट में हम लोग वो चेक नहीं कर रहे हैं, क्योंकि वो व्हाट्सएप पे कहीं ना कहीं वो चीज फॉरवर्ड नहीं, राइट। तो जीएसटी रजिस्ट्रेशन सर्टिफिकेट में क्या वो माइग्रेटेड है क्या? तो ये पॉइंट पुराना हो जाता है, इसको आप हटा सकते हैं। फिर उसके बाद क्लाइंट के हमारे कोई फैक्ट्री वेयर हाउस या फिर कोई गोडाउन भी है क्या, राइट। सो इज देयर एनी फैक्ट्री वेयर हाउस गोडाउन? इफ यस, वी नीड टू एड इनकॉर्पोरेट इन दैट प्लेस आल्सो, राइट। So, apart from this, whether GST is displayed or not, right? Apart from this, whether the separate ratio is taken for input service distributor है ना। अपार्ट फ्रॉम दिस, वेदर एनी अमेंडमेंट इज रिक्वायर्ड टू बी मेड टू द जीएसटी सर्टिफिकेट। कई बार क्या होता है कि पार्टनर्स की लिए साथ ऑलरेडी जीएसटी सर्टिफिकेट बना रहे हैं, उसके बाद हमने एमसी के पोर्टल पर जाके 2 और ऐड कर दिए, जीएसटी सर्टिफिकेट पे करना ही भूल गए। तो हमारी आरओसी की टीम तो बराबर काम कर रही है, बट हमारी जीएसटी की टीम, क्योंकि आपको पता होगा 15 दिन में हमको अपडेट करना होता है, right? तो कहीं ना कहीं ये पर्टिकुलर चीज हर 2-4-6 महीने में बड़े क्लाइंट्स में चेक नहीं होगी, कहीं ना कहीं हमारा ये प्रॉब्लम रहेगा ही रहेगा। Apart from this invoicing documentation, right? So whether the tax image or bill of supply is issued as per GST law, तो टैक्स इनवॉइस और बिल ऑफ सप्लाई एज पर जीएसटी लॉ इशू होना चाहिए, बिल ऑफ सप्लाई फॉर एग्जाम। अपार्ट फ्रॉम दिस जो भी रिलेवेंट पर्टिकुलर्स है सेक्शन 31 में 16-17 चीजें, उसी के अकॉर्डिंग वो इनवॉइस बन रहा है कि नहीं। मतलब समटाइम्स हम लोग ने क्लाइंट के इम्प्लीमेंट करवा दिया, पर टेली से प्रिंट करने में वो 4-5 इन्फॉर्मेशन उनकी रह गई, तो उससे क्या होगा, हम हमारी कंप्लायंसेस को फुलफिल नहीं करें। तो आपको पता रूल 36 के अकॉर्डिंग सामने वाले रिसिपेंट को भी 5-6 इन्फॉर्मेशन मैंडेटरी चेक करना, तो उसको इनपुट में प्रॉब्लम आ सकती है। तो ये हो रहा है कि नहीं हो रहा, राइट? Whether the tax invoice for supplier goods is issued on or before the removal of delivery goods, that is a mandatory requirement. Whether the tax invoice for supply of services, right? तो इन्वॉइसिंग डॉक्यूमेंट्स में भी हम लोग के माइंड में चीजें हैं, हम लोग को पता है, बट वो चीजें क्लाइंट्स के 3 साल पहले चेक हुई थी, राइट? आज हमने उस पर्टिकुलर चीज को देखा ही नहीं। सो ये पर्टिकुलर चीज आप अपने इंटर्न्स, आप अपने जो भी स्टाफ है वो उस स्टाफ को लेके चेकलिस्ट भेजी, 3-4 दिन का टाइम लगा, बहुत वापस कॉन्फिडेंस हो जाता है। कोई भी क्लाइंट गलती कर रहा होता है यहाँ पे, technically we can check also. Whether the bill of supplies is issued for exempt supplies, non-taxable supplies, right? Whether the revised invoice is issued in case of new registration. So there are a lot of points, जितना जितना लोगों पढ़ के जितने चीज समझ में वो यहाँ पे इंकॉर्पोरेट कर दी। आपको लगता है कि 3 चीज और ऐड होनी चाहिए, आप यू कैन इंकॉर्पोरेट। Whether the receipt voucher issue, अब समटाइम्स क्या होता है, they are very well aware that एडवांस के केस में हमको एक रिसिप्ट वाउचर इशू, हम हमारे क्लाइंट्स के लिए रिसिप्ट वाउचर इशू करते हैं कि नहीं करते, बट दिस इज नॉन कंप्लायंशियली नहीं होता। वेदर द सेल्फ इनवॉइस एंड पेमेंट वाउचर इशूड इन केस ऑफ आरसीएम, राइट? तो अब सेल्फ इनवॉइस आरसीएम के केस में बनना चाहिए, पेमेंट वाउचर आरसीएम के केस में बनना चाहिए, बट बना के नहीं बना है ना, हमको पता है। बट वो क्लाइंट की अभी ऑडिट के केस में इस तरह की चीजें जो है 7 साल के अंदर सबको अवेयरनेस हो गई, तो इस तरह की चीजें जो है जीएसटी डिपार्टमेंट चेक कर रहा है। Whether the refund voucher is issued for refund of advance is whether the credit note, debit note as per the provision of section 34, right? Apart from this, जो क्रेडिट डेबिट नोट है अभी 30 सितंबर पहले डेट थी, अभी 30 नवंबर हो गई, तो वो बराबर से उसी डेट पे हो रहा है कि नहीं हो रहा। दिस द पॉइंट फॉर सेकंड पॉइंट, दैट इज इनवॉइसिंग पार्ट। नाउ थर्ड बात, दैट इज फॉर गुड्स एंड टू जॉब वर्कर। अब जॉब वर्कर के केस में भी बहुत तरह की कंप्लायंस, वी आर वेरी वेल अवेयर। तो आपको क्लाइंट यदि जॉब वर्कर है, तो यहाँ पर अगेन क्या जॉब वर्क पे गया हुआ माल वापस विद इन टाइम लिमिट आया कि नहीं आया, क्या आप आईटीसी 0 पर रिटर्न फाइल्स कर रहे हैं कि नहीं कर रहे हैं। तो इट नॉट एप्लीकेबल, यू कैन राइट डाउन है नॉट एप्लीकेबल, बट इफ एप्लीकेबल यू कैन चेक अगेन 5-7-10 पॉइंट्स के ऐसा हो रहा है कि नहीं हो रहा, अदरवाइज देयर इज नया लॉट ऑफ पेनल्टी, राइट? तो गुड्स एंड आईटीसी 0 को रिटर्न जो है आपको पता होगा कि 17, 18, 18, 19 के लिए वापस हट गई थी, तो उसके बाद तो बराबर से एप्लीकेबल है। सप्लाई के केस में आपने बराबर से एग्जेम्प्टेड, जीरो रेटेड, नील रेटेड, ऐसी रेट वाली सप्लाई को, इस सबको बराबर से आपने दिखाया कि नहीं दिखाया, राइट? अपार्ट फ्रॉम दिस जो क्लासिफिकेशन है के बाद में इंटरस्टेट सप्लाई, इंटरस्टेट सीएस की जगह आई तो नहीं लगा दिया, राइट? आई की जगह सीएस तो नहीं लगा दिया, तो आई की जगह सीएस, इसके आपके ऊपर तो कोई इंटरेस्ट की लाइबिलिटी इसके ऊपर नहीं आएगी, बट सामने वाले के ऊपर हो सकता है कि इनपुट टैक्स क्रेडिट लेने में प्रॉब्लम आ जाए, जहां आपने आई की जगह सीएस लगा दिया, सीएस की जगह आई लगा दिया, राइट? अपार्ट फ्रॉम दी हैव चेक द इंटरस्टेट सप्लाई इज पर सेक्शन 8 ऑफ द आईजीएसटी, राइट? Have you checked for the sale of capital goods, the GST charge there only showing the retail. So sometimes capital goods के ऊपर क्लाइंट्स को मित होता है कि बिफोर जीएसटी वाले कैपिटल गुड्स के ऊपर जीएसटी लगेगा कि नहीं लगेगा। तो कई तरह के पॉइंट्स है, तो आपको कहीं ना कहीं चेक करने होते हैं कि उसके ऊपर क्लाइंट्स ने बराबर जीएसटी लगाया कि नहीं लगाया। अब अपार्ट फ्रॉम दिस अबेटमेंट, राइट? तो रियल एस्टेट के केस में वेरी वेल अवेयर कि 12 लाख रुपए का मैं फ्लैट बेच रहा हूँ, तो 1% जीएसटी हम लोग जनरली बोलते हैं, बट लो ये बोलता है कि 12 लाख का यदि फ्लैट आप बेचते हैं तो 8 लाख टैक्सेबल वैल्यू है, 1/3 वैल्यू दैट इज वो नॉन जीएसटी वैल्यू है, तो 8 लाख के ऊपर आपको 1.5% का जीएसटी दिखा के रिटर्न फाइल करना है। बट जनरली 50-60% रियल एस्टेट क्लाइंट के केस में जो 1% की जीएसटी रेट से जीएसटी रिटर्न फाइल होती है, वहाँ पे 0.75 की जगह 0.5 की जगह लिख दिया जाता है, और टैक्सेबल वैल्यू 12 लाख रुपए लिख दिया जाता है। तो कई बार एक जो चलती हुई आ रही परंपरा उसी को हम लोग फॉलो करते हैं, बट स्पेसिफिकली जीएसटी नोटिफिकेशन आप खोल के देखोगे तो 2/3 वैल्यू टैक्सेबल वैल्यू, 1/3 वैल्यू स्पेसिफिकली इस तरह से इंडस्ट्री वाइज चीजें बदल जाती है। Apart from the, are there any transaction wherein the job goods sent for job work not received back and details supplied है ना? तो इस तरह की कई तरह की ये एग्जॉस्ट लिस्ट है, 10-12 पॉइंट्स मैंने यहाँ पे जितना मेरे क्लाइंट्स पे एप्लीकेबल पे लिख दिया, बट आपको लगता है 3 पॉइंट इसमें और लिख सकते हैं, मैं राइट डाउन अकॉर्डिंगली प्रोसीड, राइट? अपार्ट फ्रॉम टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई, आपको पता होगा इन केस ऑफ कंटिन्यूस सप्लाई ऑफ सर्विसेज, आप एक स्पेसिफिक टाइम होता है, उस टाइम में आपको बिल रेज करना होता है। सर्विसेज के केस में स्पेसिफिक टाइम लिमिट है, नाउ वो टाइम लिमिट फॉलो हो रहा है कि नहीं हो रहा है, टाइम लिमिट ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ कब पेमेंट आया, कब कब काम खत्म हुआ, कब इनवॉइस हमने रेज किया है। तो उस पर्टिकुलर पर्सपेक्टिव से ही ट्रांजेक्शन हो रहा है कि नहीं, पता लगे बैंक पेमेंट तो आपको पहले आ गया, सर्विसेज भी होगी, और बिल क्लाइंट ने 4 महीने बाद रेज किया है। तो वी नीड टू चेक दैट पार्ट ऑल्सो, लाइक whether whether the time of supply is complied for continuous supply of services, जो मैंने बताया कंटिन्यूस सप्लाई ऑफ सर्विसेज केस में कब कब वो एग्रीमेंट बोलता है कि किस टाइम पे वो पर्टिकुलर पोर्शन सप्लाई का कंप्लीट माना जाएगा, और उसके बाद में जो है इनवॉइस चेंज होगा, तो हम लोग को वहाँ पे देखना पड़ता है। अपार्ट फ्रॉम दिस इनपुट टैक्स क्रेडिट, हैव यू चेक वेदर द इनपुट टैक्स क्रेडिट अवेल ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ इनवॉइसेज लाइक बिल ऑफ एंट्री, टैक्स इनवॉइस, डेबिट नोट। तो केवल 2B में शो होने से हम लोग को इनपुट टैक्स क्रेडिट जो है हम लोग एलिजिबल नहीं होते, हम लोग को स्पेसिफिक डॉक्यूमेंट जो है वो है कि नहीं है, हम लोग को ये भी चेक करना पड़ता है। साथ में गुड्स और सर्विस रिसीव हुआ कि नहीं हुआ, हमको ये भी चेक करना पड़ता है। नॉट ओनली 2B के बेसिस पे उनको आइडिया आइडिया मिलती है। Apart from this, have you made a list of restricted input tax items, right? So, generally restricted input tax credit 17(5) हम की बात करेंगे, वहाँ पे लिखा हुआ है कि नहीं, किसकी नहीं मिलती। बट यदि आपका क्लाइंट इस तरह का रियल एस्टेट है या रेस्टोरेंट है, तो वहाँ पे आप अपने स्पेसिफिक चेकलिस्ट बनाओ, तो उसमें लिख सकते हैं कि इनको किसी भी चीज की इनपुट नहीं मिलेगी, राइट। तो अगेन दिस इज जनरल चेकलिस्ट, क्लाइंट टू क्लाइंट। Apart from any reversal and protect credit for the goods and for job workers, whether the recipient of supply has affected payment for such input in the 180 days, राइट। तो 180 दिन मैंने बताया था आपको, 180 दिन में आपको ये पेमेंट नहीं किया तो आईटीसी रिवर्स करना पड़ता है। बट इस 180 दिन से काम नहीं पड़ेगा, वी नीड टू नो अबाउट एमएसएमई लॉ ऑल्सो, फ्लो क्लोजिंग ट्रांजेक्शन, उनको 45 डेज में पेमेंट करना है। तो जीएसटी लॉ के साथ में आपको प्रॉपर एडवाइस देने के लिए आपको और रिलेवेंट लॉज की भी हमको कहीं ना कहीं नॉलेज की रिक्वायरमेंट है। वेदर सप्लाई है अवेल बोथ बेनिफिट्स और डेप्रिसिएशन, कहीं ऐसा तो नहीं होगा कि उसने डेप्रिसिएशन भी क्लेम कर दिया, कैपिटल गुड्स के ऊपर इनपुट और इनपुट टैक्स क्रेडिट भी ले लिया। तो हमको ये वाला पार्ट चेक करना है। अपार्ट फ्रॉम दिस, जैसे मैंने बताया था आपको कि 5-6 इन्फॉर्मेशन मैंडेटरी है इनपुट टैक्स। तो यदि टैक्स इनवॉइस गलत भी बन के आ गया, बट ये 5 या 6 इन्फॉर्मेशन बराबर लिखी हुई है, तो भी आपको आईटीसी। तो कई बार मैंने देखा है कि इंटर स्टेट ट्रांजेक्शन के केस में आईजीएसटी जहाँ लगता है वहाँ प्लेस ऑफ सप्लाई लिखी भी जरूरी है, अदरवाइज आईटीसी नहीं मिलेगा। तो कई आप आईजीएसटी के बिल चेक करना, उसमें यदि प्लेस ऑफ सप्लाई नहीं लिखा हुआ, रूल 36 के अकॉर्डिंग आपको इनपुट टैक्स रेट लेने में प्रॉब्लम यहाँ पे आ सकती है, राइट। तो इस तरह की भी ट्रांजेक्शन आपको कहीं मिल जाएंगे, राइट। अपार्ट फ्रॉम दी वेदर द कॉमन क्रेडिट्स आर रिवर्स एज पर रूल 42 और जीएसटी रूल्स और नॉट। तो इस तरह के कई तरह के पॉइंट्स जो अपने को चेक करने पड़ते हैं। इनके सब इनपुट टैक्स सर्विस डिस्ट्रीब्यूटर अगेन स्पेसिफिक पॉइंट्स है जो हमको चेक करने पड़ते हैं, वेदर द सेपरेट रजिस्ट्रेशन टेकर और नॉट, राइट। तो यदि आपका क्लाइंट है तो आप इस 5-7-8 जो भी चेकलिस्ट में पॉइंट लिखे हुए हैं यू कैन चेक, अदरवाइज आपका आईएसडी क्लाइंट नहीं है तो यू कैन राइट लाइक नॉट एप्लीकेबल, राइट। तो फर्स्ट टाइम इम्प्लीमेंटेशन में 4 to 5 डेज लगता है, बट ये इंश्योरिटी रहती है कि हमारा क्लाइंट पूरा कंप्लाइड है। अपार्ट फ्रॉम दिस क्लासिफिकेशन, क्लासिफिकेशन ये सबसे लूज पार्ट रहता है। हम लोग जनरली जो गूगल पे एचएसएन कोड आ रहा है, एसएससी कोड आ रहा है, या पीछे से जो लफड़ा आ रहा है उसी पे हम लोग कंटिन्यू करते थे। एक बार बड़े क्लाइंट के केस में हम लोग को चेक कर लेनी चाहिए, क्योंकि कई बार अभी नोटिस इस तरह से आ रहे हैं कि पूरी चेन चलती जा रही है एचएसएन कोड की, राइट। तो पीछे से किसी को नोटिस आया तो आगे तक सबको नोटिस गए। तो एक बार जहाँ भी हमको रेट 18 की जगह 12 है, या 12 या 5 है, एटलीस्ट 12 और 5 वाले केस में हमको इंश्योर हो जाना चाहिए कि रेट जो है वो 12 और 5 ही है, कहीं 18 तो नहीं है, राइट। अपार्ट फ्रॉम दिस क्लासिफिकेशन, क्या आप समटाइम्स क्या होता है कि जीएसटीआर 1 में हमको एचएसएन कोड डालने होते हैं। अब एचएसएन कोड यदि आप श्योर हो तो भी आप एचएसएन कोड डालें, अदरवाइज यदि आप थोड़ा भी डाउटफुल हो एचएसएन कोड में और आपने एक बार जीएसटीआर 1 में शो कर दिया तो थोड़ा सा हमारी प्रॉब्लम बढ़ जाती है। अदरवाइज आप 100% एचएसएन कोड जहाँ जरूरत है एसएससी कोड वहाँ डालने चाहिए हमको, और वही डालने चाहिए जो बनते हैं। हल्का सा भी आगे पीछे होने की वजह से हमारे को अननेसरी जो है नोटिस आ सकती है। रिटर्न्स के केस में जो है 9(1) 3B, एटलीस्ट 9 का टर्नओवर, 9C का टर्नओवर, 3B1 आपके बुक्स ऑफ अकाउंट, ये सब के सब रिकनसाइल्ड होने चाहिए। और यदि डिफरेंस है ड्यू टू इनकम टैक्स एक्ट और ड्यू टू जीएसटी एक्ट प्रिंसिपल्स, तो वो हमको पूरा का पूरा प्रॉपर राइट डाउन करके लिखने चाहिए। और 3B की इनपुट जून की जुलाई में ले रहे हैं, जुलाई के अगस्त में ले रहे हैं, वो पूरी की पूरी एक चेकलिस्ट बनानी चाहिए, जिससे कल को और एटलीस्ट ये इंश्योर करना चाहिए कि 31 मार्च को हम जाके कहीं भी मिसमैच ना आ रहा है, जिससे कहीं ना कहीं हमको नोटिस के चांसेस जो है वो कम हो जाते हैं। इसके अलावा जीएसटी कलेक्शन एंड पेमेंट वेरिफिकेशन, राइट। तो आपने टाइमली जीएसटी का पेमेंट किया है कि नहीं किया, राइट। सो कई बार क्या होता है कि 3B में आउटपुट भी 100 रुपए की, इनपुट भी 100 रुपए की है। तो आपने 20 की जगह 22 को फाइल करी तो वहाँ आपको पेनल्टी लग जाएगा, लेकिन आपको इंटरेस्ट नहीं लगेगा। लेकिन आपने वही डेटा उस महीने में ना फाइल करके अगले महीने करा, तो वहां पर आपको इंटरेस्ट में हो सकता है आपको इंटरेस्ट का नोटिस आ जाए। तो कई चीजें ऐसी है जो हम लोग लीनियंसी भाई अपन लोग पेनल्टी बचाने के चक्कर में नील गेट में पुरानी फाइल कर देते हैं, फिर आगे जाके डेटा डाल के अमेंड करते हैं, तो वहां पे इंटरेस्ट के चांस आपके ज्यादा बढ़ जाते हैं। इसके अलावा रिवर्स चार्ज के केस में आपको पता होगा 9(4) वाला केस था, तो रिवर्स चार्ज जो है वो 12 अक्टूबर 17 तक लगता था। तो कई प्रोविजन जीएसटी के टाइम स्पेसिफिक है, कुछ स्पेसिफिक टाइम तक वो एप्लीकेबल थे, कुछ तो आपको इस तरह से भी जीएसटी में वो चीजें ध्यान रखनी पड़ेगी। रेंट तक के केस में अभी रेजिडेंशियल वाला केस अभी थोड़े टाइम पहले आया था, बट पहले नहीं था। तो कुछ प्रोविजन जीएसटी के टाइम स्पेसिफिक है, अकॉर्डिंगली वी नीड टू चार्ज लाइन। अपार्ट फ्रॉम दिस, वैल्यू ऑफ सप्लाई सेक्शन 15 डील करता है कि आप डिस्काउंट के लिए लगा रहे हैं तो पहले से एग्रीमेंट में लिखा हुआ है कि नहीं है। आफ्टर सेल डिस्काउंट अलाउड नहीं होता, उसके ऊपर जीएसटी पे करना है। तो कहीं ना कहीं वो इनिशियल लेवल पे हमने प्योर एजेंट के केस में, आप कई क्लाइंट के केस में आरओसी के एमसी के चार्जेस जो हैं उसके ऊपर जीएसटी, तो वो क्या आप प्योर एजेंट की कंडीशंस कंप्लाई कर रहे हैं कि नहीं कर रहे हैं ना। तो किसी चीज का अमाउंट आना और अमाउंट आने पे जीएसटी नहीं लगना, हम लोग को कहीं ना कहीं प्योर एजेंट की कंडीशंस को कंप्लाई करना पड़ेगा। तो एटलीस्ट रूल 33 के अकॉर्डिंग हम लोग प्योर कंडीशन कंप्लाई कर रहे हैं कि नहीं कर रहे हैं। इट्स नॉट लाइक कि 100 रुपये आया 100 रुपये का ही गया, हम लोग के ऊपर जीएसटी नहीं लगी है। एटलीस्ट वी नीड टू चेक द प्योर एजेंसी कंडीशन कंप्लाइड और नॉट, राइट। अपार्ट फ्रॉम दी वेदर द रेट ऑफ टैक्स चार्ज ऑफ सप्लाई फॉर द जीएसटी लॉ, तो रेट का भी मैंने आपको अभी थोड़ी देर पहले डिस्कस किया था कि 18 की जगह कहीं 12 लगा दी, 12 की जगह, क्योंकि वर्क काउंटर के केस में कई रेट चेंज हुई है। तो वो रेट्स का चेंज होने के बाद में कभी कभी हो सकता है कि आपने हर क्लाइंट को टाइमली नहीं बताया हो, या क्लाइंट को बता भी दिया हो, क्लाइंट को चेंज करना ही भूल गए, है ना। तो इस तरह की चीजें भी हम लोग उसमें रेगुलरली चेक कर सकते हैं। अपार्ट फ्रॉम दिस वेदर सीजीएसटी एजीएसटी, जो हम लोग पहले डिस्कस कर रहे थे कि आई की जगह सीएस लग गया, सी के यहाँ पे आपको इंटरेस्ट तो पे नहीं करना पड़ेगा। बट देर मे बी पॉसिबिलिटी कि बायर को यहाँ पे इनपुट टैक्स क्रेडिट लेने में प्रॉब्लम आ जाए, क्योंकि आपने फाइनेंशियल रिक्वेस्ट वाइज में सीएस की जगह आई लगा दिया, 2 साल बाद जाके पता लगता है गलत लग गया। तो यहाँ पे आपको इंटरेस्ट की लाइबिलिटी नहीं आएगी, सामने वाले को हो सकता है कि उसने सीबी में सीएस ही डाला था आई की जगह, तो यहाँ पे आई क्योंकि टाइम बाद की वजह से आईटीसी लेने में प्रॉब्लम आ जाएगी। इसके बाद कई सारे पॉइंट्स है रिफंड को लेके कि रिफंड इज नॉट लाइक कि आपने आपको अकाउंट में रिफंड आ गया तो आप फ्री हो गए। तो कभी कभी कई बार कई ऑडिट इस तरह की आती है रिफंड लेने के बाद में, तो रिफंड रिफंड लेने के बाद में यदि नोटिस आया उससे पहले हम लोग को रिफंड लेते टाइम ही प्लीज 54 ध्यान से पढ़ लेना चाहिए कि रिफंड जो क्लेम कर रहे हैं वो एज पर लॉ कर रहे हैं कि नहीं कर रहे हैं। इवन रिफंड आने के बाद में भी यदि गलत रिफंड क्लेम हो जाए तो ज्यादा डेंजरस है। तो कई तरह की चीजें इसमें है, कई तरह के सर्कुलर रिफंड के केस में आए हुए हैं, वो हम लोग को चेक करना चाहिए। और कुछ गलत चीजें तो हमको वॉलंटरी डीआर से जमा कर देना चाहिए इंस्टेड ऑफ वेटिंग फॉर पेनल्टी इंटरेस्ट एंड होता है। अपार्ट फ्रॉम दिस इनवर्ड सप्लाई के केस में है भी चेक द परचेज में डिलीवरी चालान से तो जहाँ पे चालान आ रहा है वहाँ पे चालान के साथ हमको इंश्योर करना चाहिए। देर में भी पॉसिबिलिटी चालान के साथ माल पहले आ गया हो, इनवॉइस बाद में आया, देर में भी पॉसिबिलिटी इनवॉइस पहले आ गया माल बाद में आया, राइट। तो जीएसटी की इनपुट लेने के लिए हमको सारी कंडीशन फुलफिल करनी पड़ती है। तो ये सारे सारे के डॉक्यूमेंट्स के साथ में हमको ये भी इंश्योर करना चाहिए गुड्स और सर्विस रिसीव हुआ कि नहीं हुआ, क्योंकि ये प्रैक्टिकली क्लाइंट प्रोमाइसेस के कंट्रोल से ही पता लग सकता है। अगर ओनली ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ टू यदि इनपुट ले रहे हैं तो मंथ एंड के ट्रांजेक्शन पे ये इंश्योर कर लेना चाहिए एटलीस्ट कि उसका वो गुड्स रिसीव हुआ कि सर्विस रिसीव हुई या नहीं हुई। तो जो मेजर मेजर ट्रांजेक्शन है मैं यहाँ पे डिस्कस कर रहा हूँ। अपार्ट फ्रॉम दिस मेंटेनेंस ऑफ बुक्स ऑफ अकाउंट, तो मेंटेनेंस ऑफ बुक्स अकाउंट दो चीजें हैं कि आपको हेड ऑफिस में कितना करना है, आपके क्लाइंट प्लेस पे सॉरी ब्रांच ऑफिस में कौन कौन सी चीजें मेंटेन करनी है। इसके अलावा जैसे मैंने बताया गुड्स और सर्विस रिसीव हुआ कि जो कहीं ना कहीं आपको चीजें डॉक्यूमेंट करनी पड़ती है कि जीआरएन ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ जीआरएन गुड्स का कहीं ना कहीं ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ मेल सर्विसेज के केस में मेल से भी कई बार वो चेक करते हैं भाई आप आपकी पर्टिकुलर सर्विसेज कंप्लीट हुई कि नहीं। कौन कौन सा आपको स्टॉक रेट पे कहाँ कहाँ मेंटेन करने की जरूरत है, कौन कौन सा आपको हेड ऑफिस में मेंटेन करने की जरूरत है ये। तो कई बार क्या होता है हेड ऑफिस और एडिशनल प्लेस पे बुक्स मेंटेन होते हैं, कहीं और जगह हो रही होती है। तो ये पर्टिकुलर भी इम्पोर्टेंट, क्योंकि जब भी जीएसटी सर्वे इंस्पेक्शन के लिए आएंगे आपके वो हेड ऑफिस और ब्रांच की जो रिपोर्ट है वो देखना चाहेंगे, अरे लोग यही बोलता है। तो ये आपको भी कहीं ना कहीं ध्यान रखना पड़ेगा कि किस जगह पे बुक्स रिपोर्ट मेंटेन करें। अपार्ट फ्रॉम दिस जनरल, तो there are lot of points जो जनरल जो ऊपर की चीजों में कवर नहीं है, बट वो फिर भी उसके रिलेवेंस आती है। आपको पता होगा एंटी प्रॉफिटिंग थोड़ा सा भी उसके लिए सनसेट की वजह चांसेस है कि आगे जाके बंद हो जाए, राइट। इसके अलावा आपको पता होगा एक जीएसटी प्रोविजन है कि आप कंप्लायंस टाइम पे नहीं करते, कंप्लायंस सेटिंग का भी, तो आपकी रेटिंग हो सकता है इन फ्यूचर जीएसटी डिपार्टमेंट खोल दे और कंप्लायंस सेटिंग डाउन आ जाए ना। तो इस तरह की कई चीजें हैं जो आज की डेट में एप्लीकेबल नहीं है, बट क्लाइंट क्या कंप्लायंस टाइम से फाइल नहीं करते, उसकी फिर में पॉसिबिलिटी की रेटिंग डाउन हो जाए और उससे कॉर्पोरेट क्लाइंट जो है वो डील ना करे। तो इस तरह कई तरह के कंट्रोल, ये एग्जॉस्ट चेकलिस्ट है पूरी की पूरी जो बनाई गई है। तो अल्टीमेटली सेशन का जो पूरा पर्पज था वही था कि हम क्लाइंट के अनवांटेड टैक्स ना आने दें और पेनल्टी इंटरेस्ट ना आने दें। उन सब सिनारियों में हमने पूरा एक प्रोसेस देखा कि किस किस तरह से हमको प्रॉब्लम आती है, और सॉल्यूशन के लिए हमने डिस्कस किया कि हमको नॉलेज के पर्सपेक्टिव कहाँ से आज तक का नॉलेज है ना फ्यूचरिस्टिक लेना, बट क्लाइंट स्पेसिफिक जब तक हम लोग चेकलिस्ट को फॉलो नहीं करेंगे, इट्स वेरी डिफिकल्ट कि हम लोग इंश्योर है कि क्लाइंट जीएसटी कंप्लाइंट है या नहीं। तो दिस इज फ्रॉम माय साइड, एंड इफ एनी क्वेरी may ask for next time. Yeah. I am also updating GST updates on regular basis. So if anyone wants to connect and send me contact details. Sir, actually,
हाँ सर।
yes, कोई क्वेरी है तो आपको सेंड कर दीजिए।
There are
Screen
2-3
visible है
questions, sir.
sir?
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Sir,
Yes,
one
sir.
of the query is from Santosh Kumar Kushwaji from Howrah. He asked, one of my client is providing the recovery agent service to the registered party under RCM. My question is whether my client have to generate e-invoice or not. Turnover is greater than 5 CR.
So I think for RCM, there is no requirement of e-invoice. So I need to recheck, but as per my current understanding, in case of RCM, e-invoice is not required. I need to
So
recheck.
you are saying in case of RCM, there is no requirement for e-invoicing.
Right. So as per my current project, there is no requirement. I need to recheck. So right.
Okay. Okay. Sir, the next question is from where we can get the checklist which you have shown on the screen.
So I'm sharing with you. You can share with your participants.
Okay. Shreya ji, can you share it in the to the participants? Shreya? Okay, we will move to the next question then.
So, can I share in, how can I share?
Shreya sir, Ajit sir, are you there?
Yes, sir. Hello.
How we can share the checklist which the speaker sir has shown us to all the participants?
Sir, what you can do is you can share the PPT with us or the checklist on cpedadmin@ici.in and copying Ajit, sir.
Okay.
Then
All the participants will get the checklist over the mail.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay.
Over the mail, sir, we will upload it on the same link as well. Of course, over the mail, they can write us cpedadmin@ici.in and we will upload it on this ICI TV as well. Where
Right.
this live recording of this thing would be uploaded after this event.
Sure. Sure.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Akshay sir, for the wonderful deliberation. I'm sure the members have a lot of queries. They will post it, and we will, again request you to kindly provide the feedback. Thank you once again, Akshay Kumar Jain sir from Jaipur for addressing the gathering.
thank you.
Friends, we have our second speaker on yet another wonderful topic, that is practical aspects in valuation. As you are aware, the current scenario, the buzzword valuation is around the corner. whether it is business valuation, whenever we are, going for the startups or share valuation, it is a new opportunity for we chartered accountants to get registered as a registered valuer. I'm sure our speaker, C.A. Krishna Kumar Mittal sir, is going to address all the queries. Sir has more than 12 years of experience in various fields like business valuation, consolidation of listed and public companies, merger and acquisitions. He's also a valuation consultant in insolvency and bankruptcy code matters. His proficiency includes forensic and transaction audits with a focus on compliance under various laws, including the Companies Act and Income Tax Act. We welcome Krishna sir on the forum of CPE Committee ICAI, and I request you to kindly address the gathering. Over to you, Krishna sir.
Thank you, Akshay.
Krishna sir, I request you to kindly deliberate in English only because a lot of
No worries.
members
No worries,
are
no
from
worries.
South as well. Thank
No
you.
worries, no worries. I will. Thank you, Akshay, for this introduction, and thanks to Ajit ji, Gyan ji, Purushottam sir, and Akshay. And this was really a wonderful session before of my valuation session. And my topic, I will start with my session. Just. I hope my screen is visible.
Yes, sir, visible. Can you make it full screen, sir?
Yeah, sure. Just.
Visible, sir.
Okay. So, thank you once again for CPE committee for giving me opportunity for this topic, practical aspects in valuation. As we know that in this current scenario, everywhere valuation makes a very important topics in the current scenario where there are a number of startups, and by the vision of Modi government's the startup Make in India campaign and all things where they are promoting the startups and all things. And there are n number of mergers, acquisition, particularly on the foreign direct investment and the importance of Indian economy for the World Forum, where the most of the investors are looking to the Indian economy. For that purpose, they want a valuation for the investment purposes. Today, I will more speak about the practical aspects in valuation, and what topics that I will cover in this topic is how or the step to be proceed with the valuation assignment if we are getting any valuation assignment, and relevant source for the data collection. In this today topic, I will cover all the aspects for the practical scenario, from where how we can start our valuation assignment. If we receive the valuation, what are the first step that we need to do, and to the end, how to present your valuation or submit your valuation report to the relevant stakeholders. And points to be considered while preparing the valuation report is more important aspect, because as we know that the reports and our audit reports are the language to be present to the stakeholder rather than our things. And the practical challenges that I will cover during the course of this presentations and all things. So first step I will make it these things. So practical aspects of valuation involves applying theoretical concepts and methodologies to real world scenarios, requiring a blend of financial expertise, analytical skills, and industrial knowledge. Key practical consideration including selecting the appropriate valuation approach based on the nature of the assets or assets or a business being valued, and specific purpose of the valuation such as merger and acquisition, financial reporting, or investment analysis. The main key aspects while doing any practical assignment for the valuation is the data availability and the quality are the critical practical challenges, particularly for the privately held companies or asset lacking transparent market data. As a professional, we must gather and analyze relevant financial information, market comparable for the market approach, and economic indicator to ensure accuracy and reliability in their assessments. Second practical things that is more crucial aspects is the incorporating risk assessment is also a very crucial aspects. And third one is related to the methodologies, assumption, finding to the stakeholders, all the things are there. So first, in the practical assignments, once we are getting any assignment for the valuation purposes, first we need to analyze. I am covering the valuation assignments or things in the 5 way. First one is the understand the purpose of the valuation, that is a more critical and the critical aspects while you are going for any valuation. Because and I will divide into the 3 categories. After this slide, I will show you in a 3 criteria. After this, getting any assignment for the purpose, we have defined the purpose for either for the regulatory purpose or the financial purpose or a strategic purpose. Then we have to finalize, and then we have to go ahead with the engagement letter. Once we are receiving any inquiry for the valuation, our first most important aspect to start with the documentation piece is the engagement letter, in which we are covering the critical aspects of the valuation, that is the purpose of the valuation, key aspects, fees, terms and condition, who are the appointment authority, and all sort of things that we will discuss later on in this session. Third one, after getting these assignments and engagement letter signed by the management or a board of director and the authority, then we have two most important aspect: requirement for the valuation, relevant data collection from all the relevant stakeholders. After this one, all receiving the data and the all sort of requirement, then we have to go ahead with the valuation exercise, in which a critical aspects is the selection of your valuation approaches. How we have to do the valuation based on the 3 approaches that we have is the income approach, market approach, and a cost approach, and the relevant methods under these approaches that we need to be very clear and practical while assessing any valuation. After selecting this one, this is a 4th step that I have mentioned, is the inspection or a review and research all sort of documentation. Whatever documentation that we receive thoroughly from the stakeholder, we have to do our valuation judgment or assumptions relevant with the companies and all things. Then last one is the preparation of the valuation reports and a submission to the stakeholders. This is a journey, while from the initiation of the valuation exercise to the end of the journey after the submission to the valuation report to the stakeholders. So 4 most important aspects. First is the critical aspects. Once you are going for any practical valuation exercise, we need to ascertain or analyze the purpose of the valuation first. Why we require this valuation? This will gives you enough knowledge or enough things for selecting the valuation exercise, valuation approaches, and the documentation that we required while doing for the valuation. So purpose of the valuation is foremost critical while going for any valuation assignment. I have categorized the purpose of the valuation in the 3 categories. First one is the financial reporting. As we know, after the India's adoption in the last 5-7 years, India was adopted Indian version of the Ind AS, where the valuation requirements are there, under which there are the certain Ind AS which required the valuation through the registered valuer after the Companies Act enactment 2017 rules. So second one is the strategic decision making, for which we require a valuation, and third one, the 4 most important aspects for the regulatory requirements. In financial reporting segment, we require a valuation while we are doing any impairment or a goodwill recognition while doing the Ind AS as per the compliance of the Ind AS 36, as business combination Ind AS 103, and ESOP valuation for the Ind AS 102. This I have categorized into my financial reporting. Second most important aspects while the purpose of the valuation is the strategic decision making, where the merger, demerger, where we are making a brand valuation. Second important aspect, other aspects are we are pledging our shares to the banks and all things, these, and restructuring of loans, restructuring of their capital structure, legal disputes, family disputes. These all are other strategic decision making where we required a practically a valuation. And foremost important and last is the regulatory requirement, because regulatory requirement, as we have to understand a purpose under the regulatory requirement is foremost important, because every regulatory requirements under the umbrella of under the act, different acts, there are the different authorities recognized by the regulatory bodies for doing the valuation. That is a most important thing, because after, as we are know that valuer bill is in place to the parliament and valuer bill is there, after the valuer bill maybe there is a common body, that is a National Institute for Valuer, where there is a one authority where who can do the valuation exercise. But as of current scenario, it is taking almost a 10 to 15 minutes time to counsel your stakeholders what valuation report required from whom, because there may be a transaction where you required a different signatories for the getting the valuation report. Foremost, for example, under the Companies Act, there are only a registered valuer recognized by the Insolvency Bankruptcy Board of India, having a certificate of practice with the relevant RVOs, can do the valuation under the Companies Act. Apart from the registered valuer, anyone cannot issue a valuation report under the Companies Act. There are a FEMA under which there are a transaction. If you have any transaction with the resident to the non-resident or non-resident to the resident, there are a authority. There is no concept of the registered valuer, where there are the chartered accountant, cost work accountant, and the merchant banker are authorized to do a valuation and certify the valuation under the FEMA requirement. Third one, most important act or a code is the Insolvency Bankruptcy Code, that is 2016. That is only a registered valuer, under which there are three class of assets has been defined under the Insolvency Bankruptcy Code. First one is the securities of financial assets. Second one is the plant and machinery, or a third one is the land and building. Only these categories registered valuer can do a valuation under the Insolvency Bankruptcy Code of India. And fourth one, there are a Income Tax Act, where they have a 11 UA rule which defined there is no specific authority per se defined under the 11 UA rule 1 or other rule 2, but they have specifically defined a merchant banker, while if we are adopting the DCF approach or DCF method. So only a merchant banker is allowed to do the same. Earlier, there was a concept of accountant, but which was deleted by the Income Tax Act in way back 4 years or 5 years down the line. And there are one more act that I have missed here is the SEBI. Under the listing LODR, we required a valuation report in which a registered valuer can do, because all the documentation all under the Companies Act because of that one. So requirement is very much clear on this regulatory front. So purpose of the valuation is more critical while doing for any valuation exercise. Now, after moving ahead, we have discussed and have a clear vision, clear idea about the purpose of the valuation. Then we have moved to the start our valuation exercise, as the first more important step is to do the engagement letter. Make an engagement letter where you have to make all the terms and conditions clearly mentioned, where what sort of information that is required, what are the terms and conditions into the valuation, what is the purpose of the valuation, who has appointed you, what is the responsibility of the client, what is the responsibility of the valuer. Most important aspect is the confidentiality of any information that is sought to be received by the valuer from the client or all the stakeholders. As we know that there is a parliament, there is a personal data protection bill is also ongoing, which is not notified yet. The confidentiality clause is more important nowadays. So we have to be very confidential while doing, and the confidential clause is also there. Most important aspects also in an engagement letter is scope or your limitation while you are doing. And another aspect is what are the expert opinion you will get it while you are doing the valuation exercise, like of land and building or a plant and machinery or any industry expert, because as we know that every industry has their own working style and their working things and financial things. So we need a industry expert, because when we are going for any valuation exercise, financial projections are there, financial historical data are there, and industry trend need to be analyzed while going for the any valuation exercise. So you might be need a valuation consultant while you are going for the valuation exercise. So your engagement letter should explicitly mention all the sort of requirement, what are the expectation all from your client, or deliverables that you will deliver to the client. And the timelines is also a very important aspect. What is your timeline to complete this assignment? And more foremost things are also commercial aspects and your payment terms and conditions, so that there is no ambiguity while you are going for the valuation exercise. So engagement letter is the first critical aspects while you are starting your valuation exercise. After completing the engagement letter things, you go ahead with the key aspects, key factor for selecting the methods and your document requirement. So once you are go through with your things, and after purpose and engagement letter, the four most important aspects how you will proceed with the valuation exercise. Four most critical aspects: how you have to select the method, what are the types of method that you have to select, and the approaches which you have to submit. Accordingly, your method, your approach will define your document requirements as well, because every method has their pros and cons, and every method required a different set of document requirements, which we need to be collected from the relevant stakeholders. And there are the factors which is affecting the selecting, and which you guide also how you can proceed with these approaches and which approaches. And there might be a transaction where you can adopt a multiple approaches. For example, when you are going for any fair valuation and all sort of things for a merger or a demerger and a big companies, they are always, because as we know that every approach has their pros and cons and strength and weaknesses. So every approach gives some strength or some weaknesses. But when we are going for the fair value of any companies and any transaction, we will make most of the time are the collection of two approaches, primarily the market approach or income approach, which gives you a relevant fair value of any companies or any transaction. So that while you are doing any selection of the method, the foremost aspect that you need to analyze is nature of the asset to be valued, which assets that you have to be valued, what transaction that what you are valued. So if you are going for the IBC purpose, for example, insolvency bankruptcy purpose, because there are most of the time there are a concern on the going concern basis. So we are going for the cost approach or a asset approach, which is a fair market value approach, in which we are going for, because the reliability of the future cash flows and the working of the companies is under the questionability. So we are going for the we are going for the asset approach. And if a company is a matured company and have a very strong historical data and all sort of things, then we definitely go for the market approach or income approaches, depend upon the transaction. And method is also depend upon the availability of the adequate inputs or information and their reliability as well. That because market approach sometimes for the privately held companies, when we are going for the valuation, availability of the inputs or information or market comparable availability is not much available. Therefore, we maybe adopt to the income approaches rather than a market approach, because there may be a very small companies where because there may be a comparables are not available per se, because as we know that lot of company and listed companies or a publicly traded companies, they have maybe a difference in the size, revenues, EBITDA, your enterprise value, PE ratio, your PE ratio, your return on capital, your capital, your capital structure that is depend upon the comparables when we are going for the any approaches. So availability of the adequate inputs and information is also critical while you are selecting the method or approaches. And as we have discussed, that strength and weaknesses of any approaches has their strength and weaknesses. For example, is your income approach gives you a futuristic aspects rather than a current or futuristic aspects. Your market approach gives you a comparables, and which lacks the income approaches and also in income side of the companies and the profitability sides of the company. So these are the factors while you are selecting the approaches or a method. So I have already also mentioned that if you are going for the fair value of big company, value select the appropriate valuation approach and method. That may not be a single approach method that is best suited for every situation. So we can arrange or we can do a valuation from the market approach and income approach or asset approach, and we can make a club of and weightage of the all the approaches, and then we can define a valuation of any assets. I have mentioned a brief of the all the approaches is income approach, market approach, and cost approach. As we have discussed, income approach is based on the income side and expected to generate in the future, which we are considering more on the income side of the approach. Market is the similar assets what is traded in the market, and comparables under the market approach we are considering compare the transaction with the relevant market and make a valuation of the selected assets class. Cost approach is based on the cost or replace or reproduce of any assets. There are only two methods that is mentioned is the replacement cost or a cost method. Maybe that two methods are there is there. One, if we have purchased this assets in a current market scenario, what is the value of that assets? And if we will go for this sale of that assets, so what will be the realizable value? This is a cost approach. I have mentioned a certain scenarios or various scenario where we are using a different type of approach. As we have discussed of IBC valuation, there will always be a asset or cost approach primarily, because as we know that income approach or market approach may be not applicable because the reliable cash flows are not there, and companies most of the time in my practical experience, companies are not having a going concern. Therefore, income approach is not applicable, and there may be because the company is not working. So the market approach is also not applicable per se, because the relevant or considerable marketable comparables are also not available. So in IBC, we are going for the asset approach of the asset side of the approach. Startup valuation is also a very key factor as of nowadays, because as most of the companies and most of the startup and boom are there, so startup valuation is also have their practical challenges and practical things, because most of the practical scenario and the difficult task where we startup does not have only an idea, or it does not have a current projection or a current revenue stream, and there may be not a historical data, past strong data, how you have to value. So we have to go for the income approach or market approaches, and there are the specific method as well where we are doing for the startup valuation. For example, the Burkers model or simulation method, scorecard model. These all are the specific method when you are going for the startup valuation. In practical scenario, what we are going for the startup valuation, most of the time we are going for the income approaches and mix of the relevant and the specific startup methods. That is a workers model or a simulation or a scorecard method, because in this one, as we know that startup has an idea and they have a promoter and the management leadership team and all sort of things, they have a weightage under the workers methods and all sort of things. Third one is the critical aspects is the merger and acquisition, where we predominantly use the market and income approaches and or cost approaches as well, because for the amalgamating company or amalgamated company, because amalgamating company will be the company which will going to be merged into the company, maybe because they will not have a going concern and seize their affairs, company affairs, then they may be we go for the fair value of the assets, and in company in which the company is going to be merged will go for the income approaches or a market comparable approaches. Fourth one is the intangible assets. Predominantly, we are going for the intangible assets, the income approaches or there are the n number of methods, that is a royalty relief method, brand evaluations, other things sort of scenario where we are going for the income or a market approach. Fifth one is the mature business that we have already discussed. Mature business have their enough availability of the data, so we are going for the income of the market approaches. Valuations required under the certain legislation like of income tax valuation, where we know that in income tax act there are 11 rule 11 UA sub rule 1 and a 2, where 11 UA sub rule 1 talks about the shareholder to shareholder transfer. Second one is that if any fresh issues by the companies are there are in recent one 24th September 2023, government has notified a certain methods for the PE transactions under the 11 US sub rule 2. So there are the specific method that is defined under the Income Tax Act. You have to abide that specific methods while you are doing for the income when you are going for the income tax valuation for that per transaction per se. So after this one of the selecting of the methods and the requirements and all sort of things, then you have go ahead with the data requirement. That is the foremost things while you are going for the valuation exercise. What sort of data that you require while you are going for the valuation exercise? Because that is solely depend upon the selection of the methods and a company to company in which you are going for the startups. Maybe a different set of requirement may be there. For a merger acquisition, there are different set of requirement. For insolvency, also I have listed down the foremost or a common documentation which is required for most of all these scenarios, which is required for the doing the valuation. But every set of purpose of the valuation, we require a different set of requirement. Foremost requirement that you require for any valuation is the brief profile of the company, which we required from the company side, which includes your company incorporation detail, your capital structure, your current scenario, nature of the business, location, production details, their capacity, their future business plans, your promoter details, their backgrounds, their location, their plant capacities, their profitability, shareholders, index, their charge details, and our investors, and all sort of things that we require for the brief under the brief profile of the company. Because as per the standard for preparing the valuation report, this is a critical aspects you have to mention or written down in the valuation report. So you require a brief profile from the company in a detailed manner to mention in your valuation report. Second most important aspects, you require a historical data or annual reports while you are going for the valuation of the, for example, for the mature business or a merger acquisition or a insolvency bankruptcy, you required a immediate at least last three financial statement annual report along with the notes of accounts, which gives you a brief and or detailed procedures on all sort of information related to the company. Because as of now, we know that Ind AS requirement under the Ind AS, there are n number of disclosures which are critical factors going for the valuation. That under as in notes of accounts in Ind AS, there are the risk parameters also mentioned. What are the credit risk? What are the liquidity risk? What are the market risk? Which is clearly mentioned in the balance sheet financial statement. So you required and go through very detailed in a manner the last historical data for which you required a immediate last three financial year financial statement. Third one, this is a most important aspects, is a valuation date. Valuation, because as we know that every time, every date or every scenario, valuation is keep changing for any company. So on a valuation, and you require a valuation date, and because we are doing a valuation on a particular date on which you are arriving the value or a fair value. So the valuation date is also a very critical aspect while which we have determined or mentioned into the engagement letter itself. Because after maybe you are considering a valuation date, suppose you are considering a valuation as on the 31st March 2024, and maybe after 4 months or 6 down the line, company maybe have a huge loss. So the company may be a value that is you have determined as on 31st March 24 maybe differ after the 6 months, 30th September, suppose 30th September 2024, maybe a projection may be differ. So the valuation date and provisional balance sheet as on the valuation date is more important. you have to get it from the relevant stakeholder, in which provisional balance sheet gives you enough idea about the current scenario of the and difference from the last audited financial to the effect of the valuation date. So you can analyze what are the changes into the valuation from the last historical data to the valuation date. And most important, you also get an idea about the cost of equity and cost of debt and the capital structuring, which is more important while you are going for the income approaches. Fifth one is, if you are going for the income approaches, you require a management certified projection for at least for the 5 financial years, so that you have enough idea about the capital revenue, capital expenditure, your company's capital projections in terms of revenue, in terms of EBITDA, in terms of relevant assumption for on which basis that the projection has been made. Because as a valuer, you have to make a review of that projections and there is a concept of normalization as well, where the valuer make a review of the received projection and make a normalization of the concept. Normalization is basically a concept where we are eliminating the exceptional items or other things which is not in regular in nature, which we are eliminating while you are doing for the valuation, and the notional capital and lack of deferred tax assets. And because as we know that in India there are n number of transactions which has a notional value, which we have to eliminate while you are going for the valuation exercise. If you are going for the income and if you are going for the asset approach and all sort of things that you require, most important the fixed assets register, in which you require a original cost of the purchase of the assets, your depreciation amount, and the details and the tagging for the land and on which date you have received. The detailed fixed asset register is required while you are going for the asset approach, because each assets need to be assessed by the different category of the valuer. For example, if you are fixed assets are land, then you are to go for the land and building valuer, plant and machinery for the plants, and all sort of things that you require for the plant and machinery valuer. Because as you for example, in a practical scenario, when you are going for the merger and acquisitions like of things, where all sort of all approaches are applying either on the amalgamating company or amalgamated company, when which company is going to be ceased to be amalgamated ceased to be merged most of the time, or maybe we are using the asset approach, under which you require the other valuer support by the securities of financial assets. Ultimate value for the swap ratio or securities of financial assets need to be calculated the fair value of that company vis-a-vis with the merged company. For the insolvency bankruptcy purpose, you require most important provisional balance sheet as on the commencement of CRP, corporate insolvency. So you require a provisional balance sheet as on date for doing your valuation exercise. But in practical scenario, most of the time in the insolvency, you are not getting the provisional balance sheet on the CRP date because of the lack of support from the suspended director, or that company was not working since so many years and you are not able to get it data. So in that scenario, that is a practical challenge as well, which we will discuss while we are going under the course of this slides. And the documentation that is more important that we have already discussed is the signed engagement letter and board of resolution for the valuer appointment. And the other valuer reports, if you required for most of that, maybe in practical scenario, you are getting only for the assignments of the security of financial assets. So company can go for the other valuer from their independent basis. So you may be required other valuer reports from the stakeholder itself for considering, and you have to be very once you are receiving an expert report from the other valuers, you have to be vigilant or be careful the authority and the person, are they authorized to do the valuation for that set purpose for which you are going for the valuation. This is the sort of data requirement when you are going for the valuation exercise. After collecting this requirements from all the stakeholders, then your analysis purpose will start, and you have to review and analyze all document is that you are receiving from the all the stakeholders. So review of the past is that we have discussed, review of the past financials, review of analysis of the financial projection, industry analysis. In industry analysis is also more important while you are going for the valuation, because industry analysis gives you a comparison with the company that you are going to be valued. Because maybe a company in which industry having a trend of something, for example, company is having a real estate company, and maybe you know that real estate having a 30-40% of the gross profit, or a retail something, but you can analyze your industry trend with the selected company. You might be company having a less profitability in comparison to industry, or maybe a more profitability in comparison to industry. So that gives you a risk weightage, or gives you idea about the discounting factor and factoring related to this one. So industry analysis is more important while you are going for the valuation. And SWOT analysis, that is a strength and weaknesses of any company with respect to the market and all things. You have to be clear mentioned in your report, strength and weaknesses, comparison with the similar transaction. For example, the startup transactions, your specific real estate transaction, all sort of things. There are the similar transaction, you can get it a valuation. Comparison with the listed or listed companies. Most important aspects as well, once you are going for the all the reviews, discussion, analyze, research, whatever that you have done, after analyzing all sort of things, then you have to be discussed with the management, their future perspective, their business plans, and all the consideration after discussing with the management. If you are going for the inventory, because as we know that inventory comes under the security of financial assets bucket, so you might be required a physical visit for valuing the inventory while going for the valuation exercise. And four most important aspects is the assumption that any assumption made for the internal condition must be stated. Text of RV must consider the internal assumption that on which premise that is valuation is going on. And you have to be, what are the assumptions that is made, you have to be practically validate all the assumptions that are in par with the industry trend or not, or a historical data and all sort of things. So assumption need to be validated, because if any assumption will change, that will definitely change your valuation value. These are the things that you have to be procedure that you have to adopt while going for the valuation exercise and sort of things. Now, if you have, now I have mentioned the key factors while you are going for the valuation under the market approach. I have mentioned the practical things and practical databases here for the references of yours, because in market approach, once you are adopting the market approach, you have to be aligned a comparable selection, on which basis you have to align similarities, recency, and quality of the data. Choose your comparable that are similar in size, industry, geography, and business model is more important. Your compare, because for example, you cannot compare Mercedes car with the Maruti 800, because Mercedes has their own features and Maruti 800 has their own features. So you cannot compare like of things, apple or a banana, you can compare. You need a category of the apples only for comparing the apples. So in same manner, similarity is most important based on the size, industry, your debt structuring, your capital structure, your revenues, your PE, on which set basis you have to be aligned or do a market research and identify the relevant comparables while you are going for the market approach. And recency means you have to take a recent database, not a historical database for market comparison. You cannot take it a 5 years or 6 year historical data. You have to take at least a recent one, last 1 year market data while you are going for the market scenarios. And quality of the data is also a more important, and reliability of the data is more important while you are going for the market approach, because you have to be very clear while you are going for the valuation that from which source you are getting the data. Is this reliable? Because any lack in the reliability of the data, that is definitely change your valuation and gives you into a trouble while you are going for the stakeholders. Most commonly, in market approach, we are going for the valuation multipliers while going common multiplier when you are going for the valuation that is more a P ratio, enterprise value to EBITDA, your price revenue, price to book value. These are the sort of the comparables or comparable we are going for the market approach. In practical scenario, what we are going, we have calculated all the price earning ratios, enterprise values, and EBITDA of the company which we are going to value. Then we analyze or take a market research and do the similar findings, similar companies, what are their P ratios in the similar domain. Then we have to multiply the existing companies multiplier and get the market value, get the fair value of that company. Industry specific multiplier are also there, where you are getting a transaction based multiplier. For example, for the telecom companies or a hospital like of things, there are certain specific database as well, which are paid versions, which gives you this type of data for getting the specific transaction valuation. Now, after getting the data from the market, because as you know that every company cannot be comparable exactly to the market trend, so you always require an adjustment while you are going for the adjustments for the market comparable. That is solely also more precisely depend upon the valuer experience, their judgment and their thorough knowledge on the market. That's because they have some subjectivity while going for the adjustment, and adjustment are more depend upon the growth rates of the companies, profitability and risk profiling, as we have discussed, that you gives idea about while going through with the financial statement, particularly on the India's balance sheet, where there are the risk and the analysis of the risk and their things are mentioned. So you can comparable risk and the factoring of this one and make a suitable adjustment while you are going for the valuation of the relevant company and make a relevant adjustment. After making a relevant adjustment, you can derive your values. In practical scenarios as well, we are going for multiple multiplier. For example, for the P ratio multiplier, enterprise to EBITDA and revenue multiplier, we are not consider much, because revenue multiplier gives you a more values. So we are considering the EBITDA, EBIT multipliers. And after getting specific values from this multiplier, we are making a weightage of these multiplier and getting the fair value of the company. I have mentioned the source from where you can get these data in a practical scenario, because in a practical things, getting the data is really a difficult task. So you can go for if you are having a budget and you are getting a more assignments on the valuation, because in paid version of data is highly costlier, like of Bloomberg and router our database are the, if you can afford, because most of the big fours and all side of things, they are using the paid database for getting the data for the relevant market approach. So if you have access of the database, you can easily get the information from the relevant database, but not a worry. If you are not getting a paid database, you can easily go for the Google support, and you can go and you can make their own database or a specific database by doing more research through the Google. Precisely the stock exchange websites is relevant countries specific stock exchange based exercise, particularly in the Indian context. You can go for the BSE or NSE, and there are the specific industry specific indexes that are being there in the BSE and index website. So you can easily get the historical data and your P for the P and all sort of thing. I have mentioned the money control, or for E and EBITDA, I have mentioned the screener websites, and most of the trading platforms or trading websites gives you a relevant data, but you need to do a more research and make a database accurately, because if you are having a paid database, then you have a click of the button, you are getting. But if you are not having the database, then you have to do a more research and make your own database, like of in practical things, that what I am doing for, if you are going, I am going for any particular company, then what I am doing, I am taking a industry specific BAC index database. After getting the industry specific, then I am going to the money control sites and the relevant screener site and getting a comparable specific industries companies and getting a specific data for that company, at least for 10 to 20 companies, which are incomparable in nature in terms of the revenues, beta, your EBITDA, and all sort of things which are relevant to and more comparable, and data structuring, that is capital structure, because more relevant. And I have identified these companies after getting a 10, 20 companies, and then I am making a weightage of that data of the PE and all sort of things. Then I have applied to the company which I am going to be value. So in that way, we are getting the market, we are getting the value through the market approach. Now, after moving ahead, key approaches, most important approach, and most of the assumptions are in income approaches. In income approaches, there are n number of assumptions, and you have to do a more research on the income approaches, where if you are going for the valuation through the income approach. The first most important aspects while you are going for the income approach, that we have already discussed, you are getting the data from the relevant stakeholder. Through the document requirement, you are getting three more important aspects while you are going for the income approach. First one is the past historical data under the brief profiling, your past annual reports, and your provisional balance sheet as on that date. Then, after getting the projections, you have to calculate first more is the projected free cash flows while you are going for the income approaches or going for the valuation. And once you are going for the projection, you have to be thorough the projection with the historical data, that the projection that we are you are received from the stakeholders are in line with the historical data, are in line with the capital, are in line with the business objective and the long-term and short-term vision of the company. There are the assumptions which are going to be mentioned in the projection are in sync with the historical data and the industry trend. You have to be thoroughly validate all the assumption, and you are getting the free cash flows. And free cash flows, how we are getting the free cash flow? There are the 2-3 method type of adjustment why we are going to the free cash flows. You can go for the EBIT and earning before interest and tax. After earning inflows and tax, you can add net of interest tax plus your notional adjustment while you are going into the projection, that is a depreciation, all sort of things which does not having a cash components. So depreciation, as we know, is a notional component, is decreasing the profit, but there is no cash component. So we are adding back the depreciation while you are getting the free cash flows. After free cash flow, there is an adjustment by the increase or decrease in the working capital and increase in the decrease of the working capital adjustment. And more important, after this one is the adjustment or an expenditure or on a capital expenditure, we are making the adjustment. After making all sort of adjustment, we are getting the free cash flows for the enterprises or a firm, on which we will charge the discounted rate, which we will calculate under the income approaches. This is also a very critical aspects while you are going for the income approaches. Once you are getting the free cash flows, because as we have discussed that 5 years down the, we are typically taking up 5 years, or maybe if any special purpose vehicles are there where the life of the company is limited, for example 5 or 10 years, then you will go ahead for the 10 years, because after, in this scenario, after 10 years that company will going to be seized. So maybe in that scenario, terminal growth value or the values will not be there, as we know that we are going for the valuation on the going concern basis. So the terminal growth value, that is a valuation for the infinity of the company, will have to arrive. after the 5 years of the or a set period which we are considering. After getting the free cash flows of the 5 years, because as we know that we have to calculate the valuation as on the specific valuation date. So we are considering the valuation for next 5 years, but if we know that we have to calculate the present value of the future cash flows to the valuation date. So the discounting factor is the important aspects while you are considering the income approaches. So in discounting aspects, two component you have to calculate a weighted average cost of capital. That is, you have to calculate weighted average cost of capital is nothing but basically a combination of debt and cost of equity and their apportionment their composition of the capital structure, which is defined your weighted average cost of capital. Before going for the weighted average cost of capital, two most important aspects, that is a cost of capital and the cost of debt. How you are calculating the cost of debt or a cost of equity in the current scenario. So I have mentioned a few sources of for the practical scenario, how you are getting the cost of equity or cost of debt is you are not for cost of debt cost of debt is really not a difficult task, because you can easily ask from the company for their cost of debt, as they are having a funding from the banking side or a NBFC or a PE investment or any things. So you can easily write to the company and getting the relevant cost of debt, maybe this which is ranging from the 10 to 15% of range, and you are getting, if company having a multiple cost of debt rates, then you can have a weighted average weighted of the cost of debt, and after getting the weightage of cost of debt, you arrive the net of cost of debt, net tax of cost of debt while you are going for the weighted average cost of capital. So cost of debt is more easily to get it in practical scenario, because you are easily get it from the company. Now the cost of capital is also a very important aspect, how you are getting the cost of capital from the market or in a practical scenario. So I have mentioned BSE. You can I have mentioned the link from where you can get it a cost of capital. As we know that in BSE or in NSE, there are the specific indexes. If you are going for the specific indexes for the company, I will not prefer for the BSE as a whole for the CAGR purpose for a cost of capital. I will rather go for the specific industry specific returns while going for the, I practically go for the 10 or 20 years down the line of the historical performance of the specific index while you are getting the cost of capital. So I will take it. I will download all the specific index data, and I calculate the CAGR, respective CAGR, while you are going for the cost of capital, and then cost K, that is return from market. I will get it the return of market. After return of market, that is BSE specific index or NSE specific index, I will, as in cost of capital, there are the predominantly specific method, that is a CAPM model that we have read about in our financial management syllabus during the course of the CA. So the formula for CAPM is the risk-free rate of return plus beta plus multiplied by risk premium. That is nothing, risk premium, rate of market return minus risk-free rate of return. In each aspects, how you are calculating the risk-free rate of return. I have mentioned a link from where you can easily get it the risk-free rate of return through the investing.com or 10 years bond yield. On a particular date, you can easily get it the risk-free rate of return. After getting the risk-free rate of return and risk premium, risk market return through the CAGR of the index, respective index or a respective industry trend, then you have to calculate the beta. That is also a more important aspects. To collect the beta itself is a practically a challenge. So beta, how you can derive? There I have mentioned a beta. There is a India industry specialist. You can easily refer Ashwin Damre, that we know that he is an international valuation guru for the valuation exercise, and he has done enough research for the country specific data and betas. So you can, and he has done a industry specific, mentioned the betas, leverage beta, unleveraged beta. You can easily take it the industry specific beta from there, and you can make a put it into the CAPM method and make a calculate the cost of equity for the particular company. Or you can have, if you have a database, as we have discussed with the paid database, you can discuss with the, you can get it easily extract the database, which you gives a click of the button easily beta. After getting the betas and all sort of information, and you have to be very clear and noted down all the procedure that you have taken and we have discussed, and the relevant sources while you are preparing your valuation report. Your valuation report does not have any ambiguity and a contingency from where you are getting the values. That's why I am mentioning the links, the source. You have to be very clearly mention the source from where you are extracting the data. That is this, and in while you are mentioning into the valuation report. Once you are getting the weighted average cost of capital, you easily get it the free cash flows for the next 5 years. Do the present value formula and get it the free cash flows for the 5 years. Now the more important aspects after getting these value, fifth more important aspect, the terminal growth value, because as we know that company is an ongoing concern basis. So we are assuming that company will run into the infinity period. For infinity period, you have to calculate some sort of values for that period as well. So there are the method which is prescribed for the Gordon method, or adjusted Gordon method for the growth aspects, in which there are the important aspects is the growth rate, which play a key role. What growth rate you will consider and consider to be a company will grow for the infinity period of time. So growth aspects is also a very important aspect which make a practically make a more weightage than a present value of the next 5 years than to the terminal growth value. So terminal growth value is also important aspect. So growth aspects, how you will consider the growth rate. You can have a set of things or parameters while you are calculating the growth rate. You can go for the country specific growth rate or a industry specific growth rate. You can go for the equity research. You can go for the market research reports. There are the n number of research analyst reports are available in the market where they are giving industry specific growth aspects for the companies or industry. So you can easily take it a growth rate from there and consider and make a relevant note of that report from where you are getting these things. Or you can also get it if you do not want to be these type of data. You can easily, if company is a matured company, if you have availability of the data, you can go for the historical trend of the company for last 5 years or 10 years. You can get it a specific growth rate on which basis company is growing, or in profitability how they are growing, or their EBITDA and revenue. In terms of these things, you are making a growth rate on the certain parameters and making an average of that growth rate, and you can consider that growth rate as well while you are calculating the terminal growth value of the company. After getting these type of getting these values, present value from the for the 4-5 years, whatever that you have considered for the projection period, and plus your terminal growth value, you will get it the enterprise value, and make, after getting these value, you have to deduct net debt while you are calculating the enterprise value attributed for the equity shareholders. So net debt is nothing, basically a total debt minus your cash and cash equivalents. You are getting the net debt, and after deducting this one, you are getting the enterprise value that is attributed to the equity shareholder, and you can simply divide that value to the number of equity shares that are existing as on the valuation date, and you will get the fair value of the company. And 233 adjustment also are there if you have going for that is are not mentioned here, but 2-3 risk adjustment that they were in we have discussed in the market approach, like income approach. There are also a two adjustments are also there. Two that is DLOM or DLOC. DLOM is nothing, is a discounted lack of marketability, and DLOC is the discounted lack of control. As we know that every company is not directly, when you are going for the, typically for the privately held companies or closely held companies, as we know that these companies are not easily tradable. So there is a concept of discounted lack of marketability. So whatever value that we are getting after the income approach, you are getting an adjustment of the discounted lack of marketability, which is ranging from the 20 to 40% in practical scenario. How you are getting the marketability data is itself is a practical challenge, because you have to analyze the companies before there are methods, that is IPO method or like of things, where you can easily analyze the company before the IPO and after the IPO price. So you can also get it the discounted, and reference you are calculating the discounted lack of marketability. You can make a trend of this one. Second adjustment is the discounted lack of control. That is more important, is depend upon what sort of either if you are going for the minority stakeholders valuations, all sort of things, that concept of discounted lack of discounted lack of control is play into a crucial role, and you have to make an adjustment while going for the income approaches. So I have not mentioned the asset approach, because that is a very clear, easy approach in the practical scenario. Not much documentation is required. You can easily go for the book values and all sort of things. So you are going for the asset approach. After getting all the valuations and all the Excel working all things, the most important aspects your presentation through the valuation report, and what are the critical aspects and what are the critical things or information you need to be mentioned into the valuation report, because there are the specific standards by the ICI and the International Valuation Security Standard Council as well, IVSC, and they have mentioned a clear standard for the valuation report, how you have to prepare the valuation report, and there are the clear guideline by the Insolvency Bankruptcy Code of IBBI as well, how you have to prepare a valuation report, which these are, I have illustrated down the critical aspects or a critical points or a mandatory points you need to be mentioned while you are preparing your valuation report. Apart from that, you are free to go for mention any information you want to mention in the valuation report, but these are the information you have to mention in a valuation report. Executive summary that I have mentioned is not mandatory as such, but for a better presentation and all things, executive summary should be there. As you know that nobody is having a management, top management does not have a time to having a detailed to go through the detailed valuation report. So you maybe prepare a 2-page or valuation executive summary in which you can highlight the broader aspects of your valuation exercise and making how you have derived that value and the broader things, so that you can so that top management tracks crisply getting the valuation, how the valuation per value shares and fair value of the things, so that followed by your detailed valuation report. First point that you have to be clearly mentioned is the brief profile of the company that you are expecting getting from the valuation relevant company or a stakeholder. That is a brief profile of the company, in which we have already discussed this. What are the content that you have to be taken or a mention to the brief profile of the company? That is solely depend of the valuer to valuer what sort of information they want to mention in the brief profile. But key aspects or a minimum aspects is to the company formation, capital structure, your shareholding and patterns, index of a charge or things, and business plans, future projection, long-term, short-term vision need to be mentioned into the brief valuation report. Background information of the asset being valued is important, which sort of assets that you are going to, you have valued need to be clearly mentioned in the valuation report. Fourth one is the purpose of the valuation, under which that we have discussed, on which ground you are going, for which purpose you are going to the valuation under the financial reporting, regulatory requirement, statutory, or a strategic. You have to be mentioned your clear purpose of the valuation, what is for which you are going to issue this valuation report, and who has appointed you for doing this valuation is also a important aspect. You have to mention clearly your engagement letter references, why so and so dated engagement letter, dated and signed by this board of resolution, dated, we are receiving this as authority to do the valuation. You need to be clearly mentioned in the valuation report. Identity of the registered valuer, that is your credential. Are you eligible while you are issuing the valuation report, need to be clearly mentioned. That is comes under the identity of the registered valuer. If you are going for the Companies Act, your IBBI registration number need to be mentioned. If you are going for the FEMA, your CA, CWA, merchant banker licensing number need to be mentioned, and all sort of things that you have to be, your brief background of your valuation and your capability need to be demonstrated while you are under this heading. And any other expert valuation, if you are considering while you are doing the valuation report, need to be mentioned. Intended user of the valuation need to be mentioned, like of to whom you are addressing this valuation report, and what is the for example to the board of director, or for example to the resolution professional, to the liquidator. You have to be clearly mentioned the intended user of this valuation report. And your disclosures of the you have to be clearly make a note of this one, that you are not the conflicting party while you are issuing this valuation report. For practically code of ethics of the valuation gives you a restriction. If you are going for any valuation, you are not to be connected, or you are not going to be any connection with since last 3 years. So in practical scenario, if you have an engagement with the valuing company for the last 3 years, you cannot do for the valuation, especially for the, you are a statutory auditor or internal auditor, you are having any connection with this company, you are not going to be do a valuation. You have to make a clear note that we are not a conflicting party, or we are abiding by the code of ethics while you are issuing this valuation report. Important aspects: date of appointment, valuation date, and date of report, that you have to be key to be mentioned. Date of report is also a mentioning, where on which date, please make a note on this one. Valuation date and date of signing of the report may be a deferred date. Valuation date or signing date cannot be a same, or maybe a same date, but cannot, most of the time it is not a same date. Valuation signing date is always be after date of the valuation date. All of the inspection, investigation, procedure that you are adopted, that we have discussed in the earlier slides, you have to be illustrative demonstration into your valuation report. What are the basis source of information from where you are going to be procedure, how you are selecting which approach that you are selecting, on what basis you are selecting, need to be clearly mentioned into the valuation report. And more importantly, the significant assumptions that you are taking, like of beta, your cost of capital, your free cash flows, growth rate, your market approach, lot of assumptions are there that you are going to be consider, need to be clearly mentioned with these sorts of information. Most important, after mentioning these procedures, significant assumption, and all sort of things that you are mentioned, that after the things you are calculating the fair value. And most important aspects of this after end of the valuation report is the caveat, limitations, and a disclaimer that you need to be mentioned, and restriction of the use of the report. This you have to be clearly mentioned. If your report should not be used by any other person, you are authorized to issue this report. That's why is the intended user of the valuation you have to mention. So if your report is used by any other person apart from the intended user, the relevant stakeholders should take a prior approval from yours to sharing that report. This need to be clearly mentioned in your report, and restriction of the use of report should be mentioned while you are going for the valuation. And conclusion that we have discussed, the conclusion is that whatever the value that you are going to you have valued need to be clearly mentioned. These are the key aspects while you are preparing a valuation report. This gives you a very, once you are considering all the parameters and mentioning your valuation, your report will be considered as a very good report, and the regulator and a relevant stakeholder will appreciate your report because of if you are considering these are the type of the parameter. So I hope I have covered the enough practical aspects while we are discussing from the starting to from the beginning of the valuation to the end of the valuation. And I hope the audience and the dear members will get at least having a key or initial idea how you can proceed with the valuation exercise. So this is all about from my side. And Akshayji, over to you if anyone having questions related to this one.
Right. Thank you so much, CA Krishna Kumar Mittal sir, for wonderfully deliberating on all the practical aspects of valuation. We, being a chartered accountant, know what valuation is and where it is used, but what is the use case exactly, how we should be, approaching towards valuation, what are the methods? You have wonderfully deliberated on the same. We have few questions, sir. One of the question is by CA K. Kanmandlu from Hyderabad. Which valuation method is useful for the longer period investment decisions, whether past performance is reliable than the future projections? What is a better valuation method for startups?
Sir, for fair value that we have discussed in the practical scenario, for any fair valuation, you need to be adopt the all of the approaches, particularly the market approach or income approaches. As you know that market approach gives you a current scenario of the company. Your income approach will gives you a futuristic approach of the company, your future cash flows, or your asset approach will gives you the historical trend of the company. If you want to go for a good or a fair value of a company, I practically adopt all the three approaches while you are going for the valuation, because discusses asset gives you a historical valuation, your market gives you a current scenario, and income will gives you a future. And make a weightage of all the three approaches, then you will get a reasonable and a fair valuation. If you go by the public reports and what are available in the market, if you go for the TCS and all sort of Google it, you will get it. Every valuation report for every valuer or a sound valuer taking all the three approaches in factor, then he will arrive the fair value while going for this one. Now the startup valuation method, that is really a tricky, again is a tricky method. In a startup, practically, as you know that in a startup, venture capital is already decided the investments. And a startup does not have a much of revenues, does not have any long-term vision. Does not, even management does not know they will flourish or they will go down. As you know that there are 100 companies are unicorns in India, and their valuation are big times. So how you are calculating the valuations? So in that startup valuation, sir, there are n number of methods, for particularly in practical scenario, Barker's model, Barker's method, scorecard method, we are using up for the particularly for the startup. After this one, we are using the income approach as well, because startup, but the gestation period for the startup is longer than for a mature business, because we know that in startup, maybe next 5 years, you will not get it a much revenues. But after maybe a 5 years, for example, as a startup, lot of companies are technological based companies where there is gestation period to development of this AI or a technological platform is huge, and the capital expenditure is huge. So the income approach may be not appropriate and may be appropriate, but you need to be considered the more projection period rather than a 5 years or 10 years. Maybe in Zomato that FSM that was calculated was a 30 years or 40 years down the line projections. while you are going for the valuation. So specific methods are there, sir, and specific transaction related, industry trend related startup valuations are there. For example, in a startup, as we discussed, there's a unicorn company. They are having a customer relationship, database, customer availability of the data, how they will cross sell that data. These are the parameter, your GMV, gross merchandise value, net GMV, all sort of factors are key while you are going for the startup valuation. From that, you will consider the revenues, because every company in a startup collecting big, because initially they are in the cash burning stage where the investor money will burn, but investor money will burn for getting the data and customer onboarded from where they will cross sell. For example, Zomato company was initially a cost loss making company, but after the IPO, they are getting some profitability. How they are getting the profitability? Because initially there were only a restaurant delivery mechanism that are going. Now they are going to the big time to the restaurants and all sort of things. Now they are for Ola, for example, Ola, and they are having a database that they are going for the NBFCs. They have a Ola scooter. So these are the factors this are considering. While what are the future aspects while you are going for how you will use this customer data to getting the revenues. So the income approach is predominantly using for while going for the startups, sir, as of now in Indian current scenario. But in American scenario, specific venture capitalist methods are there.
Okay. Sir, in continuation to the same question, as you have already deliberated, a lot of fintechs, deal with the future projections and speculations, and generally the cross-selling of data is what valuation includes. But a lot of times we have seen these valuations methods to be used are not appropriate. Means, for example, when we are considering for a cred company, what future data or users they will get and how they will cross sell it, how to value that data is we want to understand.
Sir, actually that is solely depend the assumptions, sir, that we have discussed.
Okay.
You have to make a parameter that we have, sir. So you have to first capability and existing platform of that company as well. Is that company is having a capacity to generate that revenue? First, more important aspects. Sir, if you have a data, for example, sir, I have a data, sir, of 3 lakh CS, but I do not have a service to deliver. So how I will get a value? Because I do not have a product, sir.
True.
Data gives only you one aspect, sir. But generating a flow for that fintech company is itself is a critical aspect. For example, sir, you having a data, sir. You want to sell a insurance, or you want to sell a something like the credit cards and all things. But you need a sir existing platform as well. Your management should have a capability as well. That's why in a startup, sir, management promoter profile is very important, which consider into the venture capital method. If we talks about the workers method, they have a specific weightage on the management skills. They are your future leadership skills, your business plans. So they will not give you only a weightage to there are the 5 attributes while you are going for the valuation of startup. So sir, these are the things that is more important in the startup valuation. So again, I am saying, sir, assumption maybe are there. Promoter or company will gives you a n number of data, sir. I am receiving a startup just like of rocket. What I say, in first year I will get it 1 crore, next year I will get it 50 crore, next year I will get it 500 crore. Rocket. But as a valuer, you have to be practical enough that market will gives you, sir. If your economy will not give you, for example, sir, gaming companies. As you know that after last 5 years, for example, your cryptocurrencies exchange. Last 5 years down the line, or three down the line, before the regulatory aspects were not there, they are flourishing like anything. But gaming company now having a radar of the GST, that will impact your valuation. Cryptocurrency exchange having a huge tax on the GST, they have shifted their base from India to the Dubai, and they lose the clients, sir. and the Dream 11 for lack of things, anti-money laundering, ED enforcements are there because of their procedure, valuation and diminishing, because these are the critical aspects while you are concerned. So economic factor, your market regulatory aspects while you are going for the valuation is that we have discussed in the industry analysis is more important. You are going for the valuation.
True. Sir, a lot of times it becomes very easy to value an industry which is already existing in terms of comparables we have available. But what about the greenfield projects which, a new initiative, new idea is coming in the market? How to value that?
Sir, that idea, sir, that is practically is really a difficult task, sir. For greenfield, for example, any company who are going for these, for example, the solar plants that is nowadays is going on. Solar, how you will go for the solar solar plant valuation because the gestation is really high. Renewal, there are the companies which are now working on the sustainabilities and all things that is going on. That is more important aspect that you have also there the economic ESG valuation, your economic sustainability valuation. These all are the practical things, sir. So for this one, sir, for greenfield, value judgments are there. Valuer need to use their judgment and the market research. For sir, any greenfield, there are n number of research papers, sir. Academics are always there, sir. You have to, sir, once you are going for the valuation, for example, sir, that when in practically, sir, once you are going for the greenfield, you have to do the project report.
True.
And sir, for most of the time, greenfield is going for the projection for the banker as well. So, sir, project report is also, you can get it easily from the relevant one. And project report, as you know, that there are market research is there for the for this one. So valuer can easily get a reference of that report as well. And if you are not getting, you have to, sir, paid and make a paid version of that research paper. A lot of market research papers are there, sir, that are paid one. I particularly once I am going, I easily purchase that because this will reduce your expertise and your time. If you pay and get, because someone has already devoted their years and their expertise, and sir, we can easily get it by paying that money and get it the value and the research paper, and you can easily refer that that report in your valuation report, sir. So that through that practical means you can easily get it the greenfield valuation, sir.
Right, sir. Thank you so much, CA Krishna Kumar Mittal, sir, for wonderfully addressing the opportunities available in valuation. On behalf of CPE Committee ICAI, we thank our speakers, CA Akshay Kumar Jain, sir, from Jaipur, and CA Krishna Kumar Mittal, sir, from Agra, for addressing all the gathering. We thank all the participants, our chairman of CPE Committee, CA Purushottam Khandelwal, sir, Vice Chairman of CPE Committee, CA Gyanchand Mishra, sir, our support staff, Shreya, sir, and our secretary, then Mohit. Thank you all the audience for having patient listening. Thank you one and all. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.